welcome, everybody. Back to another episode of the Top Shelf. We are on episode 15 at this point, and we are playing Animon Story with our lovely author of the game itself. These are my favorite streams, easily, to be able to have the author playing with us. So thank you, first of all, for being here. I'm very excited.
It's a delight to be here. Thanks very much.
Yeah. We've got Animon Story is, I guess, the nostalgia trip of too many kids, including myself, whether or not you're a fan of Digimon or Pokemon, Yokai Watch, whatever you want to dive into there. You get the gist of where we're at as far as a genre, but now it's been translated to tabletop, which will be fun. We'll get started with the game itself here in just a sec, but let's get introductions from all of the players. We'll start, let's go clockwise. Fail, you want to start us off, and then we'll go Fail, Chrissy, and then Zach to round us out. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you playing? And then we'll get going.
I'm Fail Prime. You probably recognize me from running stuff with Singularity. I've played in all sorts of other games. Tonight I will be playing Zak Prime with my bat-like Animon Malum.
Good.
You said me next, right?
Yes,
okay.
You next.
Just kidding. I'm Chrissy. I will be playing Matilda Stillwater. She's a little bookworm with her Animon named Cece.
Very good.
I'm Zach. The creator of Animon Story. And I'm very happy to be here playing Lara, who is a bit of a computer wizard, and her Animon partner, Robotanist, who is a robot terrarium kind of thing with a little plant growing inside him.
And have you posted the art for that anywhere?
I did a little while ago on my Twitter, but I'll share it again.
Yeah, you got to go look on Twitter, because this little robotanist is my favorite thing, because the sprout in the center of his face makes a little mustache, and it's my favorite. So our story itself takes place from the perspective of these three kids going to visit grandfather. Him and his wife live out on a cottage next to the woods, quaint, small garden, just retired in the life and having a good time about it. And grandfather's invited you all over for lunch or brunch. It's fairly early in the day. It's bright. It's sunny. It is cloudless. And as he welcomes you into this space, he sits you down, and since we are doing everything off the cuff on the top shelf, I'm not 100% sure all three of yours relationship to said whose grandfather he actually is, or if this is just a fanciful town title that they have provided him. But you all know him and are comfortable with him well enough to know that Grandma's not there, which is interesting. Normally she's typically out tending the garden or working on a couple of things here or there. Definitely would be present for lunch. But that is where we begin our adventure. And Grandpa sits down and he puts the kind of food out, little snacks and drinks and what have you. And he begins kind of just small conversation about, where, what have you three been up to? It's been a little while. I know I called you here on a little bit of short notice, but I don't mind catching up from time to time, and people see us so rarely.
A little bit of short notice. You drove up to me pretty quick and was like, "Grandma's missing. Get in the van."
Well, okay. Yes, I did.
Grandma's missing. You didn't tell me that.
I did not. You spoiled the surprise. It's not as bad as you think. She does this from time to time, but I myself can't go in. to find her. She is back when she was younger, she had an Animon who traveled with her, who had the interesting capacity to pop in and out of fairy tales and storybooks. Your grandmother, being quite the bookworm, would use this to her advantage and found quite the sanctuary within these books. And her favorite of which she still visits from time to time. But it has been admittedly about a week since she's come back in our time, and I would very much like to know where she's got off to, and if she's okay.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm sure it's nothing to worry about.
You didn't think to approach us, maybe within the first 24 to 48 hours?
No,
Grandpa, I know you watch a lot of investigative discovery, Grandpa. I know you know those shows.
I do. And I also know that if I'm filing a missing persons, then I would absolutely have done so. But I know where the book is. Therefore, I know where your grandmother is. I was simply waiting. And I might have lost track of time a little bit. But it happens.
So, is there a way for us to get in the book as well?
There is. The book itself is no secret. And the Animon that your grandmother had traveled with in her younger years has found itself home within the book. The trouble is that only other individuals who are bonded with Animon are welcomed in, myself never having taken part in that sort of a friendship. I don't quite have the same gateway.
I see, fascinating. I pull out my laptop and start making notes.
So he walks off, leaving you guys to lunch for a moment, and goes and fetches this book and brings it back, and it's probably 600 pages, easy, hardcover, green leather, gold leafing around the sides. It looks like a vast compendium of various fairy tales, just collected works.
So you don't know what you're gonna get?
No. I don't, nor do I know what story she's currently present within, or frankly, how the internal workings of that kind of world work. So it's really kind of a wash, but it's fairy tales, so I'm sure kids like you will be fine.
I mean,
Let's hope so.
That depends on the fairy tale. Like, who wrote these fairy tales to begin with?
These are the abridged, re-edited children's versions of the stories, not Grimm's. You needn't worry there. Not quite that bad. At least I hope. But if you were
So we have our Animon with us
here
as well, right?
You three would already have your Animon with you. They're always welcome within the home. Grandma usually likes seeing them and interacting with them.
I imagine Robotanist waters the flowers and things outside.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah,
that.
she's particularly fond of Robotanist, as she has found herself gardening, her favorite hobby lately. But if there's any other questions you have for me, I would be pleased to answer. Otherwise, I'll open up to the table of contents and let you folks get looking.
So before you do that, Matilda's going to kind of like pop up over the back of the couch or the wherever she's probably curled up with a book, and you're going to see her rifle through a little bag, and she'll hold up a little portable Kindle, and she'll go, I think I have all of the cliff notes for these, so we should be able to skip right to the end. And then she'll just pop back down.
If you can use that to your advantage while in the book, I'm sure it would be helpful. Mind you, I don't know that you're following the story exactly once you enter, so some revisions may be necessary.
It's a very good idea to have a familiarity with the stories, actually. Yeah.
Agreed.
Well,
you damn well know I've never read a book in my life.
But the adventure's worth doing. Hopefully.
I'm sure everything will be fine. Grandma probably just lost track of time.
Sure. I mean, the longest she's ever been in there is 4 days, so this isn't absolutely abhorrent, but still worth checking in on. A good 7's 3 days longer than her previous record, and the last time she did that was a year and a half ago, so... Anyway...
Do you know, like...
Oh, yes.
If you spend a week in the book, how much time passes for you inside there? Is it different?
That's a good question. I don't know that she's ever told me. At least never told me truthfully about it, but she always appears to be the same age when she returns, so... Might pass longer, but I don't see grandmother getting older.
I'll go and call Robotnik in from the garden and start, packing up my laptop again into a bag, getting ready to go.
Perfect. As you do, he leafs through like the foreword and the preface and like the author's notes and the beginning of it, and finds very slowly ends up getting to the table of contents and opens the book, and he goes, "Now I can put you here, but dear Matilda, you seem to know these stories. Is there any in particular that you would think grandmother would prefer starting with?"
So she will kind of like get very quiet and think for a second. And her and I did read Hansel and Gretel once together. If there's something similar to that in the book.
Oh, Hansel and Gretel's a classic. Of course it's there. Perhaps we start there then. And he finds the page and slowly like flips chapters until he finally gets there. And he goes, "Okay, well, this book has somewhat of a mind of its own. I'll leave you all to it, and I will step out for the moment." And he stands up and thanks you, and if there's anything else you need, let me know, but I'll be in the house. I don't typically leave. So, and he...
How do we get out again, actually? I should probably ask you that before we go in.
I've never been, so I couldn't say, but Grandma would know. Best to find her.
Sounds fine.
Sure. Sounds totally doable.
That's not nerve-wracking at all.
Yeah.
Okay. No, sorry. Cole just popped 109 bits into the chat for something. We'll have to see. Cole, I'm gonna need some elaboration.
It says, for whatever JK says and does, healing for grandma's knee or something.
Are you insinuating that I'm gonna hurt Grandma? I'm upset now.
I'm not totally unconvinced that Grandpa didn't hurt Grandma and is trying to cover it up.
Just getting rid of
I'm sure.
all the grandchildren at the same time. So he walks out of the room, and as soon as he leaves, kind of the nature of what he was explaining is that the book itself responds to bonded pairs of people in their Animon, and you see the pages, the gold leaf on the sides start to glow and kind of encase the pages until it's just a glowing gold as it sits on the table.
Do we touch it? I start tentatively reaching out.
Okay.
So I will watch Laura do that, and just as whatever starts to happen, I will grab the butter knife off the table and stick it in my pocket just in case. And then I will grab a hold of Laura's hand if they are willing and go with them.
Okay.
Just in case you need to spread some butter. Yeah.
You never know.
Always necessary at the gingerbread house. Maybe it's molasses. Okay, so you two go and reach out and touch the book. Fail. Are you following suit?
I'm gonna watch this play out.
Okay, yeah. So they touch the book and vanish. And despite the fact that their Animon are not necessarily in contact with the book, you watch them kind of evaporate in the same golden essence. into the story's pages. It continues to glow, since there is still an Animon's companion present. But other than that, the room is just yours.
I guess I'll reach out and touch the book.
Perfect. So, all three of you find yourself, or all six of you, I suppose, find yourself within a wood. It's dark, cloudy, more or less, but not ill-suited for a good hike. A small trail along the ground with pieces of bread, it looks like, every little ways. And you can watch just in front of you the first of what you could presume, Matilda, from having read these stories before, is a number of birds as it lands and begins to eat the first of these breadcrumbs on this trail.
Everything I've ever learned tells me not to follow a trail of breadcrumbs through a dark forest. But I suppose in this case we should.
And we're not going to use breadcrumbs. She's going to pull out her pencil bag out of her backpack.
Okay.
And she's going to have a little tiny pink eraser.
Okay.
And she's going to tear it into little tiny pieces. And she's like, birds don't want to eat erasers. And start placing them where the breadcrumbs are.
Okay, as you guys walk.
As we walk.
Okay. Perfect.
Nice.
All right. So, let's see here. We're going to start these off with, let's make that our first check, actually. See how effectively you can do this as you all travel. Let me find the stats in this book here. Where did they go? Power, heart, brains, and agility. Is that? No, that's Animon stats. I don't want those. It is a beautiful book, and there are a good number of pages. I like big books with good read, but it's really easy to read. I'm just not super confident in its table of contents yet. Let's see. For those taking notes at home, at least. It's a really easy book to get through, which was really nice.
I have to also say that the art in this book is fucking adorable.
It is super good. It's very, very cute, very much appropriate.
Very good.
And it's just reminiscent enough of like Pokemon and things to be cute and cuddly, but you also get that kind of Pokemon trainer stance to the kids and things in a lot of the spots, which is fun.
Nostalgic, but not risking a lawsuit.
Yeah, you know, IP adjacent. Let's see. I am the worst. Help me out here, Zach, where am I looking for the stat blocks?
Page 34 is probably what you're looking for. For the kids' stats.
Yep, that is correct. 34. Oh, there we go. Logic, reflex, and spirit. Let's make this a logic check, Matilda.
All right. So, how many, and this is something that I know Tales from the Loop rules, but I don't want to assume. So how many dice do you roll, and what's the success on it? That way I'm not assuming I know when I don't know.
So it should be equal to your logic trait, the number within your logic trait.
Cool. Okay, so it's the same.
Right. And then we're looking for a 4+.
Cool. Okay, so it is the same.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I got a 5. Hey.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So, very confidently, you're following these birds, shooing off what you can so that you can find the similar placements and follow the trail as you break off pieces of this eraser and make your way through. Eventually, you break the wood and find yourself at a clearing not unlike your grandmother's cottage, but this one is made of gingerbread and licorice. and molasses and shingles of, ooh, let's see, stroopwafel. The shingles are
very good.
stroopwafel.
I was always fascinated by the structural integrity of the house in this story. Now I can finally see it up close. How do you build a standing house out of sweets?
It's a good question.
So you're gonna see Matilda walk up to like the corner of maybe where the corners of the house are, and there will be royal icing, and you'll see her just kind of with her whole hand, and probably her little Animon would grab a chunk too, which in my head looks like a red-eared slider turtle.
Cute.
Only cuter because they're not super cute to look at.
Now, this, I have a question about this Animon then.
Yeah.
Little slider turtle. Is it a little bit more anthropomorphic and like standing on two legs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is an opposable thumb slider turtle who's just full grip this royal icing.
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll see her kind of like, and probably hear her kind of wince in a little bit of pain. It's royal icing, just like I thought it was going to be. This stuff's really sturdy. I watch people make gingerbread houses all the time with it.
It's also worth noting to you, Matilda, if this is a house that was constructed out of the royal icing, the age of that royal icing probably is not doing great on your molars.
Robotanist will be walking around the outside of the cottage, looking at any of the plants that might be growing around. Indeed, seeing if there are any like dessert plants that are growing anywhere, or if it's just the building.
Oh yes, candy corn stalks. A whole row or two
lovely.
of them running behind the house. Also gumdrop plants, as if they were grown like radishes in the ground. The sugar gumdrops.
I think Robotanist would be muttering away, saying how he's never seen anything like this before. Most interesting.
I'm more curious as to how they keep the house from molding.
Gingerbread man. It's magical.
I thought you were mentioning the gingerbread man who's just constantly maintaining the house.
Kind of like the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland.
And the lizard, I believe. Yeah. Putting the
just
cleaning the flues, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Laura's probably said, should we take a look inside? Maybe Grandma's in there. Does seem like her kind of place.
So Matilda will turn to Zak and go, how about if you sneak around back and see if there's another exit? Because I've read a lot of mystery books and a lot of investigative books, and usually you want a second exit, or you want to make sure that like there's another way to get out just in case there's a murderer in there.
I mean, we could do that, but I myself have conducted a lot of B&Es, and so I know how to get in and out of a place.
This kid. The funny thing is that I knew fifth graders like this.
Yeah,
same. Who were just really convinced that they were very much full of that cop spirit. All right. So Zak, what are you doing in response to that then? Are you just kicking the door in, or are you following suit?
Yeah, so like on my shoulder, I've got like my baseball bat on my shoulder.
Okay.
I've got Malum kind of floating behind me, and I'm just gonna kick the door open.
Okay. And as just to recall, because we've got two pretty clear Animon visuals here, what does Malum look like again?
Malum looks like a bat. Very large wings, a very large mouth with just one fang kind of in the middle, and you don't see any eyes.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So give me let's get a spirit roll, a spirit check from you, Zak.
That is 8.
So it should be the highest die.
Oh, so 6.
6. Perfect.
You
All right.
count the number of successes you get. Basically,
Okay. Yeah. So I got 1 6.
Perfect. Yeah. It's a gingerbread house. It's been here a while. You knock in the door, and you hear the wind be taken out of somebody's sails as it completely removes this door from the hinges and hits the ground, laying flat. But you can hear like coughing underneath the door.
oh no, Grandma.
Do we need to heal Grandma now?
I think Laura will go on in as well.
Okay. You get like just muffled murmurs, and you see a little bit more gingerbread just like stick an arm out from the side and grip the edge of the gingerbread door and slide it off of itself. The center of this gingerbread man completely fractured through the middle, and he looks up at the three of and your Animon, and he goes, I was just gonna get the door. Why? You could have just knocked. I would have let you in. Why?
We can help you. It's fine. We'll put you back together.
Yeah, I'll start working on a royal icing recipe from this encyclopedia on my Kindle.
Look, man, all I know is my grandma's missing. We come across this mysterious house in her favorite book. I've been told stories about witches that eat children. I wasn't taking any chances.
Oh, wait, is your grandma the witch? That seems strange. She was quite the lady when she was around.
You've seen her.
Well, the witch, yes. If that's also your grandmother, then also yes. But in this case, I'm only familiar with the witch.
Yeah, I don't think she's a witch. And you will see Matilda going through the cupboards looking for like cream of tartar and eggs to make a legitimate royal icing.
Okay.
Oh, I have my laptop, so actually I can flip that up and bring up like a picture of Grandma, and I'll show it to the gingerbread person and be like, "Is this the witch that you're talking about?"
The gingerbread man like leans up and nope, don't recognize. Well, a little bit. Nope, don't recognize her. Did she have a name?
Yeah, Grandma.
I'm better with names.
Grandma. Yeah.
Well, I'm really bad with monikers. In the order it goes names, then faces, then monikers. So Grandma does me no good. But if you're looking for, well, this seems a little derivative, but if you're looking for old folks in the area, you're in the wrong spot. The witch has since moved on. There are dangerous things in the wood. And she was warned from a friend of hers that those things are lurking and that she should get the heck out of this fairy tale. So she's meandering through others at the moment.
Well, it sounds like even if the witch isn't Grandma, she probably knows something about Grandma if she's hopping between fairy tales.
It's possible. I know very little. Is that royal icing ready yet?
And you'll see Matilda's like, just a minute.
I'm starting to lose consciousness. It would be beneficial.
All right.
I mean, I feel like you're going to lose consciousness either way.
No, you don't understand how gingerbread people work then. Look, if you're looking, there are two directions you can head out of this fairy tale. One will take you to the Three Pigs. They are northward past the candy corn stalks. The other way is through the wood the direction you came. That will take you to Old Red's place.
Well, I'm going to assume, just based off my limited time actually attending school, that the witch wouldn't want to go to Old Red's place.
Why?
If I remember correctly, Old Red kills the witch.
Isn't that a wolf?
Isn't it? Yeah, I feel like she would find a wolf there, and she would just be able to.
I think the problem we have is there
Have
are
a
wolves
pet
in
wolf.
both of these fairy
Guys,
tales.
I go to school like 13 days a month.
This is
So
That's quite the pedigree. No, but your friends are right. There are wolves in both directions, and technically the ones heading towards Old Red's, that's a litter at this point. Big Bad's dead. Red's like 45 now. So it's been a while.
Well, at least in that fairy tale, there's someone we might be able to speak to who might be able to give us more information. I mean, in the Little Pigs, unless they've rebuilt their houses, or I don't know what stage of the story we'd show up in.
It's a constant cycle. They might be in the middle of construction. It might be destruction. They're incredibly capitalistic either
stressful.
way, so they're fine with it.
So Matilda's gonna walk over and start and removing the butter knife from her pocket. She's going to start applying it to the gingerbread man's wounds, and
It is unbelievable how quickly that came in handy.
I agree. I wish there was a. I need a reward for that bizarre ingenuity that just popped up there.
And you used it for the other thing, to what knives are usually used for.
correct, yeah, nothing murderous, also
True.
wholesome.
Only wholesome.
And you will also see Cece walk up, and it'll look like Cece's going to go to taste the royal icing, maybe with like one of the clawed hands, and she will use her healing touch to help said gingerbread man
Okay.
come back together.
Wonderful. So, with that in mind, healing touch, is that just one of your Animon's abilities, or is that their signature?
Yeah, it's their one. Yeah, it's one of their abilities. It is the only one that I have because I haven't figured out the rest. I know that there's more, but don't judge me, Zach. Don't judge me.
Oh, it's fine. No.
We were figuring it out as I was like trying to like type it up, but it was one of the ones that I picked. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So let me see here. For the Animon, let's go for... Where are your stats? We're going to go for a heart roll there.
Okay.
Because I like heart
And
right here.
I have 4 dice, 4d6 to try to have a success, correct?
Mhm.
If you're using the sorry, I'll just
go ahead.
jump
Yes.
in if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If you have healing touch as a quality and it has a rank next to it, you can add that many dice to the roll as well as the heart. And then like just
Beautiful.
count all the dice that get over 4, basically. Yeah.
Beat me to it, more eloquently put, so thank you.
I just wanted to just make sure.
Perfect. Nope.
All right. So I had 2 successes.
Okay. Beautiful.
Like 6 dice. That didn't go great, but hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
No, so you watch little Cece reach down and use this healing touch on the fresh, still warm royal icing, and you can watch it just perfectly harden and reach that prime gingerbread cookie place of not quite too tough, but not too soft to hold its form anymore. And the gingerbread man sits back up and looks down at himself and he goes, "Well, I'm probably gonna need some new decorations, 'cause the
You're going to need
cracks
a
are
new
a little...
door too.
Oh, I have the time. Nobody's coming back here. Reclaimed land, as far as I'm concerned. I'll get it figured out. But thank you all. Do you know which direction you're heading?
Do you know what direction the witch headed in?
I don't. She was gone before I arrived.
So you're a squatter.
Gingerbread is... That's my material. This is by
Okay.
right my space.
That's beside the point. This was the witch's house. Now you're here claiming eminent domain. It sounds like squatting to me.
Call it what you like, but
It's-
we don't pay taxes here, and there are no property deeds, so I will not be dissuaded from my home.
It sounds reasonable enough to me. If I was made out of bricks and mortar, I would be able to walk into any house and claim that it was mine because it was part of me.
Are there things made out of bricks and mortar where you're from? That is bizarre and terrifying. Is the house made out of them, or are they made out of the house? I don't like this quandary.
I'll come back to you.
We could ask you the same question. Is the house made out of you, or are you made out of the house?
Oh, that's gonna dwell with me a while. Look, I'm gonna go back to my first question before I reach a terrible, unending place of existentialism. Do you know which direction you plan on traveling, and can I offer any aid? Apart from deep philosophy, clearly that's not my thing.
I like the sound of Old Red, personally, but Laura would ask the others what they think.
A constant cycle of construction and destruction sounds right up my alley.
That's true too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with both. So, well, we can go Old Red.
Shall we roll a dice for it?
Sure. Let's do it.
So,
All right. 1, 2, or 3 will go to Old Red, and 4 to 6 will go to the pigs.
Sounds
Right.
good.
Perfect.
Let's see. It's a 2, so it's Old Red.
Old Red it is.
beautiful. Well, I'm also amazed that you carry dice while you're traveling. It's very strange.
Oh, I used a digital dice roller app on my computer.
Ah, that makes far more sense. I just wouldn't bog down a pocket with those. Anyway, if you're heading towards Old Red's, it's important to pack snacks. Not for Old Red, but for the litter should they come through. He kind of looks out the window and can see a robotanist out by the plants and things, and he goes, "If your friend there is taking a liking to the crop, you can collect whatever you'd like and take it with
Ooh.
you just in case."
Robotanist will go, "That is most wonderful. I would love to harvest some of your plants here if you don't mind."
I clearly just said I didn't, so please, have at it.
He'll pull up a few various sweet treats from the ground.
Okay.
Or from the stems.
Perfect.
Matilda's going to set the bowl of royal icing on the counter nearest to the gingerbread man and let him know that she has copied the recipe. Don't worry, it's very easy to follow. You have everything you need, and it can help you reinforce your house. No big deal. And she will kind of grab Cece's little paw and start walking out the door. And on her way out, will absolutely put the butter knife back in her pocket.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. All right, so off you all begin to travel again with some sweets in tow, a peculiar gingerbread man squatting in the witch's cabin in Hansel and Gretel's fairy tale, towards the fairy tale chapter of Little Red Riding Hood. As you begin to walk through these woods, you notice the artistic stylings of the wood begin to change much like it was a different author who wrote the book, but the trees and kind of foliage and things shifts a little bit about halfway through this wood, and abruptly it gets brighter. It's actually sunnier here, and the road kind of widens out. It's almost partially cobbled at this point. Very comfortable path. Off in the far distance, you can hear water running. And before too long, you can hear the padding of animal footsteps off in the distance. Small, but definitely present, and they appear to be in both directions on either side of you as you traverse this track.
I think Robotanist at first is looking a little more chipper and cheerful, being partially photosynthetically powered. The sun coming down is nice, but Robotanist is also a bit of a scaredy cat. So as soon as there's sounds in the woods, he starts like doing that cartoon shivering and shaking,
Holding a whole candy corn.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit of nerves. Is anybody taking action against these sounds or trying to divert it all, or are you guys just heading straight down this path?
Matilda will turn to Zak again and probably excitedly whisper, do you happen to have anything on you that can, like, hide us or disguise us or make us look like maybe we're not, standing out in the open?
I've got this, and I pull out a Zippo flip lighter, and I kind of flick it a couple times, and then I reach into my back pocket, and I've got this, and I pull out a can of hairspray.
Matilda will immediately, okay, never mind. And then just like...
Perfect.
and then keep walking.
Okay. So you guys truck on. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this may be this could be the litter, right? The wolves. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can give them some food and they'll just leave us alone.
So,
I mean, a litter of wolves would imply that they're like puppies, right? How dangerous could puppies be?
Yeah, that's a nice thought.
On
dwell on that.
On their own, not particularly. But as you continue down this space, and you reach where this running water is, over the river and through the woods, we are at the river portion of this story, and it is raging. There is a very, very, very rapid river passing underneath a stone bridge, fairly wide. It's probably 20 feet long, 25 feet long.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
On the opposite side of this bridge, you can see puppies of these wolves. But a litter, and fairy tale speak here, is bizarre because what you're looking at is they function like cluster Animon. If we're talking about like Pokemon, like Diglett, like Dugtrio, where it's like it's almost like the cartoon like clouds of things tumbling over each other, and just like various clouds of these puppies, just dozens of them in various places, and you could see those similar kind of magical pup clusters behind you too, kind of blowing in through the towards the rear of this bridge.
Oh dear. Should we cross?
So you will hear funnily enough, you'll hear barking in the background. Sorry about that. So very for the story. So I have a question about, and Zach can answer or JK can answer, whoever can help. To what level did we evolve our Animon? Because as we were starting, I had picked a second effect, and I don't want to assume we were doing a third one.
So currently, we are using the basic Animon as far as the evolution.
Okay.
And we should have leveled 3 times.
So they can technically have, and I'm only asking because I'm not the best at this and I don't want to get it wrong. So they should technically have, if you put the stats into the effects, right, they could possibly have 3 effects.
You would have had the opportunity to get to 3 effects if you chose that, both level ups to level 3, which is where we're at the moment, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I went through really quickly and I picked 2, and I picked the healing touch one, and then
Okay.
I picked the icy touch one.
Okay.
So if it's relevant, and you guys can fix me, obviously, as a player, I'm like totally open to being like, nope, that's wrong. You're doing it wrong. But you will see Matilda walk up to the bank of the river and go, oh, I can make this kind of easy for us. And without even thinking, she'll kind of usher Cece to her side, and Cece will kind of like whisper to her, and very eagerly jump into the water and slide out on the other side. And behind them, everything will be completely iced over. So we could essentially just ice skate across.
Delightful. Okay. You know what? I'm not going to make you roll for that. It's a turtle. It's going through a river. I'm perfectly happy with that being just a functional success. The crossing of the river in any adjacent sense, for other than this bridge, may require some rolls. But please proceed how you like at this point. The river, we'll say all of the river for a good 50 feet, just because of kind of the aura effect of this skill, on the right side of the bridge is all frozen. Solid enough and with enough conviction from Cece that you are confident that you could travel across it.
Okay. Gonna give it a go. I'm wondering, I think Robotanist is really not very agile at all, or like coordinated. So Laura will probably go like, okay, come on, buddy, and like heft him up, or like lift him up onto her back or something, and try and like slide across the ice with Robotanist. Like that.
So for you then, let me go back up to... We're going to go to Spirit for this.
Okay.
For a check on this, but I will ask, because you are hoisting Robotanist this whole time, it will be a 5+ on this.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think, and because I'm helping out my buddy, I'm going to actually spend one of my bond points to boost the roll, which I can use to give me 2 extra dice.
Beautiful. All right.
So let's see. I got 1 5.
1 5. Okay. In this case, I was looking for 2.
Okay. That's very fair.
So you go and begin. Yeah. So backpack it across this ice with your vivarium of an Animon shouldered over you. You get about halfway across before you slip and tumble a little bit, and you yourself manage to catch, but poor Robotanist ends up losing some grip, and he falls and lands. And you can see kind of the the back of the glass of that vivarium cracks a little bit. He's
Oh
going
no.
to, what is, let me see here. Let me pull up your character sheet on this. What is his current health as a basic Animon?
So because I upgraded my health on level up, it is currently 27 HP.
27. Okay, I don't feel as bad then, because he's going to take 3 damage from that.
That's very reasonable. Yeah.
But he manages to skitter to his feet and kind of roll up onto himself, and you can grab his hand and help him make it the rest of the way across.
Yeah.
At this point, timing-wise, they have recognized the ploy here, and for play or patrol, these puppies are heading your direction on both sides of the river, which would leave Laura and Robotanist by themselves currently with approaching wolf pup swarms, and you two and your two Animon on the back side of it. So if you're getting moving, best to get moving.
Cece did slide in the water and out the
Oh,
other side, so
right.
she was waiting for me on the other side. But yes, you would definitely see Matilda in her head. It's like a scene out of the book Anastasia, like a very romantical, like very good, like she just like skates across, and it probably doesn't happen at all like that, but in her head it's like very, very good.
She's really hoping.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to make that spirit as well, because you are off in your own fantasies of how well this functions.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I rolled a 3 and a 4, so I had 1 success.
Okay. Yep.
That was close. I really thought, I was like, oh no.
I'm going to say for this, again, I was looking for 2. If you
Okay.
would like to push the roll, you may. Otherwise, you can take the partial.
No, I'm not going to push it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Before I get to you then, Zach, what are your plans here?
I'm just watching everybody slip and slide across the ice. I'm shaking my head and I'm just walking across the bridge.
Okay. All right.
Just what they'd expect you to do.
All right. So, Matilda, you slip and take a dive yourself, and you can see little Cece gasp as you land, you falling forward, getting a little bit of a bloody nose in the process, but the momentum slides you right to the edge, and Cece's right there to greet you on the other side. You are going to take 2 points of loss to your stamina for that.
I thought it was a good plan, Matilda.
And she'll get up and you'll see her kind of like, I mean, I was going for like surprise, or I'm not sure. It's fine. And you will see Cece again, kind of just like put her hand on the back of her leg and just like look up at her. Okay. Like, yeah, it's okay, bud.
So, we have put ourselves in an interesting predicament here too, because now we have 2 kids, 2 Animon, about over here, and 1 kid and 1 Animon, about over here, because at the point that you went across first, those wolves are now paying attention to you. Zach got through scot-free. You're all on the opposite side of the bridge, and now the wolves are between you, rapidly approaching Laura, Robotanist, Matilda, and Cece, having paid less attention to Zach, while the other kind of dust storm of these wolf pups are coming across both the ice and over the bridge. So if you run at this point, you have the potential to get separated in the wood if you're not careful with your next move. But however you guys choose to proceed is on you.
certainly think an instantaneous reaction in kind of just this frantic fear. Robotanist just like chucks a bunch of the sweets and stuff like onto the ground, like a big spray of whatever was in his like little machine pocket compartment.
Okay. Very
To
good.
see if that does anything.
So, as the Animon, go ahead and give me a... Let's see. We're going to make this a brains check for him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make that a 3+, since you helped out the gingerbread man well enough to have him help you.
Great. Appealing sweets.
Correct. Yep. Everybody in fairy tales likes sweets.
All right. Let's see. That is 2 successes on that one then.
Okay.
2 4s, yeah.
Very good. So, having not been surrounded by the pack, his little spray of candy corn and sugar gumdrop radishes, as they kind of land and bounce across the ground, all of these little wolf pups, you can see these clouds just engulf the sweets. But it does give you enough time, at least for the ones that are in between you guys and Zak and Malum, to regroup and press on, but you know that won't hold the whole wolf litter for long, because there are more than that amount of snack will subside.
We might have a bit of a scuffle on our hands, depending on what the pup clusters want, as you described them. But we can gather up into a group again, at least.
Okay. And take the time to regroup a little bit, and are you... So now at this point, all 6 of you are together. Are you pressing on deeper into the wood down this path, or are you shoring up? Are you hiding? What is your goal from here? Because you could
Matilda,
run, climb. Go ahead.
Yeah, Matilda is not a planner. She's like I've seen this work in a book once, so she would definitely default to whatever you guys suggest.
What is Zak's instincts in this situation?
Mr. B and E.
My instincts in this situation tell us we should probably just head down the path and hope to God we don't get caught.
Okay.
We can solve that problem if we get to it, if we do get caught. All right, that sounds good. Yep.
Okay.
Laura will go ahead with that.
All right. So for all 3 of you, let's get one more stat before this or one more roll before this next stage here. We're going to make it a reflex roll for everyone.
Okay.
I got just the 1 success on that one.
Okay.
I only got 1 success as well.
I got 2.
Oh, good
Very
job.
nice. Okay. I was watching 4 total successes between the 3 of you. So
Ooh.
Zak saved the skin
Got
there.
that.
Very good. So
Yeah,
you guys sprint
good job,
off
Zak.
and just book it through the wood on this partially cobbled path, doing your best not to trip through the overgrowth in sections, and you eventually break into a space which is once again strangely very reminiscent of your grandmother's house, but this one looks a little bit more Swiss in design, with the
So it's like
I
made
guess
out of like dark chocolate?
no, well, not the
I'm
gingerbread
so
version.
sorry. That was very funny.
That was very funny. With like the cross joists and the brightly colored back paneling contrasted to a darker wood. And it is fenced around the edges of it, And as you approach the space, still hearing these hordes of, or clouds of pups behind you, at a little bit of a distance at this point, they were definitely held back by the snacks. You see the door of this particular cottage open, and that is where we are going to take our break for the moment. We will be back in about 5 to 7-ish minutes after the intermission to continue forward. Thank you for all the subs. Thank you for gifting those subs, all the bits. Everything's appreciated. We will return to finish up this Animon story and have conversations with our author Zak here after in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that. We all had a little bit of we're just making friends over here. So we are back with the Top Shelf playing Animon Story. Currently, we are in a number of different stories as our dear grandma has gone missing into her favorite storybook per her childhood companion, Animon, which she visits every once in a while to keep up. And she's been gone for about a week now. We're not sure where she is. These guys have escaped a torrential horde of like a dust storm of wolf puppies and accidentally flattened a gingerbread man. We're doing great. We have just reached another cottage in the break of these woods in a big old clearing. And as they stand on the outside of the fence to this, you see the door open and a fairly lithe, fit woman walk out wearing a deep red cloak. It looks to be new, retailored to fit her in her adulthood. And she pulls her hood back with one long, like, dark brown braid. And you see she's got what looks like a little silver whistle. And she sits and she whistles on it. And you see all of the wolves, or you can hear all of the wolves in the distance just kind of scatter. And she looks at the three of you and she goes, "Well, I don't typically get visitors around here. What brings you all by?"
Well, thanks for helping out with the wolves for starters. Well, I sort of gesture vaguely to the other kids and Animon and say, we're looking for a grandma who got lost in the fairy tales, we think. Maybe. Have you seen anyone passing through, an old woman?
Yes, I can say that I've seen a few, actually. Unfortunately.
Are you counting yourself? Like when you looked in a mirror?
And no, because I'm still here, so I, by that definition, have not passed through. Appreciate the observance, though. Look, for the three of you, I know that there are a couple older women who have passed through, what was it, about 2 days ago? They had traveled from the direction you were actually, heading deeper into the pages beyond. She kind of gestures behind the house as if everything's just in one linear path. And she goes, it was a pair of them, one of which dressed definitively more
like a witch?
Colorful pagan. Yeah, I suppose you could call her a witch. And the other one in what looks like a big sun hat. A big
Yeah, the pagan lady sounds like grandma.
Wait a second. That's not how I remember her, but sure.
Does a sun hat spark any memories for any of us in terms of a classic grandma look?
It may not for any of the kids themselves, not paying a whole lot of, but a robotanist would kind of chime up and look around and recognize the classic gardening gear of grandma.
Well, that sounds just like her, he says.
Well, good. I can tell you beyond this, beyond my chapter of everything, as well as I've been able to maintain it, lives Rapunzel, as
Wait,
well. Oh, yes.
so you guys like travel in between? Like
Well,
you're aware that this is a fairy tale?
more or less. Once you start repeating things enough, you kind of catch on, and at that point, we've just been doing our own since. Took a little while, but when folks start meddling with the pages and coming in and out, at least things start to look different to you from what you're used to, then you start to recognize that stuff isn't quite the same, even though you've been repeating it. And so we've started to adapt. And yeah, so behind me is Rapunzel. She's since made a door in her tower, and there is a couple other residents of that space, and then beyond that
How
would
sturdy would you say that door is?
oh, it is impregnable if I were to give it a rating. She had one of the pigs from an earlier chapter actually help her construct it.
Okay.
So really quickly, GM,
Mm-hmm.
this might date me, and hopefully somebody in the chat will know what I'm talking about. If not, I'm going to feel exceptionally old. But the original Winnie the Pooh,
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
The Many
You
Adventures of
could-
Winnie the Pooh on like VHS, where they would flip the pages and like Tigger would tumble through them.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, good. Everybody's here with me.
Absolute favorite children's movie. What are you talking about?
Thank you. Okay. All right. So, in Matilda's head, she is going to start wandering around and looking for a way to connect the two stories from page to page, so that in the off chance we need the help of Little Red. I'm sorry. I almost said Rapunzel again. To get into Rapunzel's tower, she just wants to be able to very quickly reference back into the previous story, and she will be on her Kindle, kind of trying to figure that out, so that it looks similar to the Winnie the Pooh page.
I might be able
jumping.
to help you. I might be able to whip up some software that could aid in that, because Laura has programming as a talent and the computer
Ooh.
wizard type features. Maybe we could work on like a little computer program that could help link the stories.
Okay. All right. So you're
She's just trying to easily connect the allies to her as she travels from story to story.
Creating
Okay.
shortcuts.
Correct. Thank you, Laura.
perfect. Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask for the same rules from both of you. Now, Laura will definitively have more towards this because it's going to be a logic trait, but it sounds like your talent is also at play here.
I think I'd be taking guidance from Matilda's ideas on how this could work, and then my part would be trying to program it in a way that the computer can create a solution to this that then we can maybe it's even like creating a simulation so that we know where to look or something like that. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a 4 in logic,
Okay.
and I had 2 successes.
Okay.
A 5 and a 6.
So I've got quite a bit on this. I've got a 4 in logic as well. I have 2 points in programming as a talent.
Okay.
And also, because I'm the computer wizard, I have my type feature, which is I know the system, which gives me boost on rolls to develop new things like software and stuff like that.
Spectacular. Okay.
So hopefully we'll get a decent score here. That's going to be 3 successes.
Okay.
To add to the file. Yeah.
Very good. starting to twist my own story against me, but I'm happy with it. 5 successes is more than what you needed between the two of you. So yeah, I think feasibly what you ended up generating there was more or less a simulation. If you're mapping scale size of what you were compared to scale size, and it's very arbitrary and very weird. Scale size to what you were compared to scale size of what you are now. If all of this was on a physical page,
Yeah.
gives you
Cartoon computer logic.
exactly, yeah, it gives you some kind of metric of like navigational coordinates to find the corners of these pages in real space as far as you are all concerned.
I give a very long-winded technobabble-filled explanation of what has happened.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Wonderful.
yeah, feasibly, I'll let you guys use that at your discretion for sections that you have already been to, because you would need to know approximately their distance and how many pages they span before you can start leaping them. So.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Right.
Maybe I would ask old Red, is there anything that we should look out for on the way to the next story, to Rapunzel?
Rapunzel has been tense as of late. Her roommate downstairs is in a bit of a sleepless tizzy recently, as the pee beneath all of her mattresses has been particularly frustrating, and the whole tower is on edge because of it. Beyond that, it's a pretty tame story as things are concerned. I think there was a witch in that one too. Perhaps watch out for that, although I couldn't say for sure.
Well, it sounds like one way or another, Grandma passed that way.
Okay. Well, is there anything that I can help you all with in that travel? Tell me, why are you looking for your grandmother? Has something happened?
Grandpa just told us we needed to find Grandma. He said he hasn't seen her in a week.
Well, I suppose that would correlate with the time span of when I had last seen those two passing through. Okay, well, I mean, I have no real additional info there. I wish I could help, but if there's any supplies that you need, I'm
They didn't say anything to
well-to-do on my
you
own.
at all?
Oh no, not at all. In fact, they didn't even get through the yard. They just kind of walked around. They were deep in conversation at the time.
Do you have any firearms?
Myself? No. I think
More of an axe.
axes I do have. Firearms I can't think of. I believe there's a musket or two somewhere throughout all of these, but I couldn't say where.
So you're living here with wolves?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a very hyper intelligent, almost anthropomorphic wolf that likes to sneak into people's houses and disguise themselves as grandmas around here somewhere.
Oh, not anymore.
You don't think that he had like a protege? I mean, serial killer wolf maybe took another wolf in and taught him how to.
No, not at all. You see, what happened was when Big Bad ended up eating Grandma, and
Our grandma? Is that
no, different grandmother. This was a couple decades ago. But when the Big Bad ended up eating Grandma, and then the woodcutter came through and cut down Big Bad, we discovered through some cartography of the area that Big Bad had a missus, more or less. She didn't survive the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of puppies, but she left quite the line, and since then, and there's nobody been taking care of them, I've been doing what I can to more or less domesticate the wilds, hence the whistle. So they're really no fear unless you catch them out and about while they're roaming and hungry. Beyond that, they're harmless.
I still feel like, look, we just came from down the way.
Mhm.
You know that there's like a squatter down in that old gingerbread house, right?
The gingerbread man?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense after having been kicked out by the muffin man. It didn't really work.
I mean, that doesn't mean you just squat somewhere. You get a job and get a house.
And what if the market's terrible and you can't seem to get a job? That's not his fault.
I mean, he seems like he's got some skills. He could figure something. He could get a hustle going.
What is it that you're getting at here?
Look, I'm just
saying that my woods are safe, and I make sure that they are.
Sure that you're gonna be safe. Look, if the gingerbread man gets bored one night and decides he wants to squat in your house, he's just gonna break in, and you don't have any way to defend yourself.
I have him over for bunko every Thursday. That's not abnormal at all. He's
Bunko.
a friend. Also, and she like pulls open the half of her like hood that just cloaks her, and just very Matrix style, she's just got hatchets, like 6 or 7 of them down the side of this cloak, and she goes, "I'm fine, I promise."
Is his name really the Gingerbread Man?
You know, I don't know, but I don't think he remembers either.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, in that case, you might want to check on him, because I think we left him in kind of an existential crisis sort of state.
It's not the first time. I'll go fetch him at some point.
He's questioning whether or not his house is made of him or he's made of his house.
I was very careful to make sure that everybody else at Bunko didn't bring that up when he was talking about his home. And now you've sent him into the spiral that I was afeared of. I will make sure that he is taken care of. Thank you for the forewarning. Perhaps you should be on your way. I suddenly have found myself with business to take care of.
Onwards to Rapunzel, then.
Yes, honestly, not that far. As soon as you get past the waterfall, you'll make it.
I'm just gonna lean over to Matilda and I'm just gonna be like, I wonder how we're gonna mess up Rapunzel.
When you do that, Matilda is going to just kind of like shrug, and in her mind, and GM, you can tell me, I don't know. I'm used to playing Tales from the Loop where you can kind of just off the cuff do whatever you want. In her head, in her Kindle, like the tales of, the fables or whatever are being rewritten as they start fucking with the timeline. So like, as she's like flipping through her Kindle, she's watching as like Zak and Laura and everyone engage with all these people, and she's like watching the stories change, and she's like, and just completely horrified.
Yeah, everything's
still going with it.
It's a completely illegible. Some of these stories are completely illegible at this point. Much like that Microsoft Word like sample font sentence, like it doesn't make any sense, but it's there. That's what you're reading a lot of the time until you actually do stuff, and then it kind of rematerializes itself. But you all press on beyond this home, and you make it to a vast green clearing. Tall grasses, a nice breeze. The river winds and switchbacks in a way that you are now walking alongside the river, running straight. And eventually, it crests over the edge of a cliff. And down below, you can see 2 things. One is that actually 3, but one is Rapunzel's tower. Currently devoid of any long locks of golden hair trailing off the side. It sits on an island, more or less, with a long bridge connecting it to the ground beneath you's mainland, as well as a house directly adjacent across the kind of moat that surrounds it, with a high wall, and smoke coming out of that as well. But even the top of this tower is probably a good 100 feet beneath you, as this cliff is just gargantuan in height.
Does anyone have any good ideas of how to get down here? I don't suppose Malum can lift 3 kids and 2 other Animon as well with those wings.
I think Malum can barely lift himself.
Well, I could try to do like an ice slide again.
Don't you need water for that?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a waterfall going over the edge of this cliff.
Yeah, but that's still like a sheer drop down.
I mean, throw the turtle in, see what happens. I'm just kidding.
Are there any plants growing on the cliff or around the cliff edge?
Yeah, I mean, there are some shrubs and trees that kind of have found their way along kind of the corners of this cliff where the water is providing them sufficient nutrients.
I think Robotinus will step up to the edge of the cliff and say, allow me to try something. So I'm going to use, well, I don't know exactly. A Robotanist has a quality which is plant affinity, which is I just put in to represent kind of familiarity with plants, but also maybe, communicating with them in a way.
Okay.
And as well as that, my Robotanist's signature attack is called Synthesis Ray, and it has an effect which allows it to be flipped from a damage dealing thing into a boosting thing. So I was wondering if Robotanist could in some way attempt to funnel some photosynthetic energy into the plants and maybe try and ask them if they could create some sort of ladder or of roots or something like that for us to climb down.
I am way in favor of that. For your Animon, we'll be rolling against your signature attack then for some of your dice, as well as your affinity. And then the stat itself would be... Let's make this one brains. He seems like that sort of
thinking
Animon.
It out.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty good roll. Got 6 dice. So
it is a long way down, so following that all the way down will require a number of successes, but not undoable.
I think, I'm gonna chuck another bond point, spend another bond point on there, and make this a real big roll. We'll see how we do.
So GM, could Cece help with that by watering the plants, since her element is water, in an attempt to make them hardier?
Let's see what we get as a result of this, and I will respond in kind.
Okay, so currently I'm looking at 4 successes.
Okay. 4 successes is what I was looking for. So.
Okay, lovely.
No need, but appreciate the offer, Matilda, as you watch this little spherical terrarium of a gardener walk over and begin to energize and commune with these plants, and you can watch the roots of one of these trees kind of dance in and out of the cliffside, leaving basically rungs in the exterior loops of these roots. Better for holding with your hands, but enough, outcropped enough that you can get a decent enough foothold. It will take you a little bit to get down there, but once you reach the bottom, you can see you would be on the side of the, I guess, mainland space as this walled-off cottage, and then adjacent to it in the kind of inlet where this waterfall leaves is that island with Rapunzel's tower.
Well, we know Rapunzel's tower, but who do you think lives here?
I don't know. Probably a gingerbread man.
Oh, I think that didn't Little Red say that the princess and the pea were in the bottom part, and she was pretty pissed off and cranky?
Of the tower, yes.
Talking
Oh,
about
of the tower. Check.
There's someone
Okay.
else living here.
How sturdy does the door look?
The place is walled, and the door to the gate to this wall is a wrought iron.
Pretty sturdy.
Yeah, it's like inset into the stone wall itself, but it is an iron gate.
So Matilda will take out like a little barrette that she's had and hand it to Zak and say, "Do you think you can break in?"
Do I think I can break in? I'm pretty sure I can break in.
We could ask this time.
Where's the fun in that?
That's a fair point.
All right. I'm going to attempt to pick the lock.
I'm going to go ahead and attempt to pick the lock. All right. So for that, we are looking at... let's grab a... You know what? That one's going to be a logic roll. Tell me, have anything 4 and above. Give me all them successes.
That would be 2.
2 successes? Very nice.
Yep.
Okay. So, you sit there and fiddle with the lock for a minute, and eventually you can hear it click, and the creak of this door swings open. And in you go. Inside of this space, where this house is a pretty vast garden. All manners of
lovely.
different vegetables, primarily herbs, actually. It looks more of an herbalist's garden. Even in the vegetables that it has, it's more root things that could be used for medicinal purposes as well.
So I turn around and I look back at the other two, and then I point at the walking terrarium, and I go as we sneak in here.
Yeah, you can see Robotness and Laura's eyes kind of start to like twinkle a little bit at the sight of this herb garden, but then they replicate the shushing and
I'm then going to sneak up to the house and see if I can't like look into the windows.
Okay. Yeah. As you look into the windows, you can see it is well lit. There's a small fireplace that is burning. It appears to be very comfortable, currently lived in. You don't see any individuals in there at the moment that you're looking, but it's definitely a very welcome space, very actively used.
How many beds?
If you're looking around, this house actually appears to be more well kept, as opposed to like a single cabin where you'd have like the 3 beds side by side. You don't see any bedrooms. What you're looking into would just be the main living space.
Knowing that we're stuck in a world of fairy tales, I'm just trying to make sure that we're not gonna, be rolled up on by 3 angry bears.
Good eye, good eye.
I'm gonna check the door. Is the door locked?
The door is unlocked.
All right, so I'm just gonna push it open slowly.
Okay.
Like I'm just gonna like kind of like take my bat and like push it against the door as I push it open.
Okay.
And like peer around the like doorway.
As it creaks and slowly opens, you can immediately hear skittering through the house, and you see the tail of a rat whisk off.
Rats. Is Ratatouille a fairy tale? Probably not.
All right.
You will see Matilda immediately start on her Kindle flipping, like hitting the buttons and trying to flip through pages to see which fairy tales have rats in them.
I'm just gonna call out to it. I'm like, hey, where are you going?
You get no response initially, and then off into the distance you get
I saw your tail.
you get a response as a nose peeks over the side of the wall, and he goes, kind of looks around. And goes, "Oi, I don't think you're supposed to be in here."
Are you supposed to be in here?
Yes, it's our house.
Are you blind? As she finally gets to the story of 3 blind mice.
Correct. Are you?
Not blind. And she's like looking at Zach like they're blind. Like, be nice.
I mean,
The
they're
mouth.
blind. That means they have really good hearing and really good smell, but I doubt that they could smell me putting something in my pocket.
You'd be surprised, boyo. I'd keep away from the cupboards.
Wait, you're
Also,
now like Irish, Scottish
do you have-
mice?
You've got lighter fluid on you.
I've got
It's
stuff.
peculiar.
Yes. Why? Do you
Weird.
need some lighter fluid?
No, just odd that you'd be carrying it. You're not a smoker, are you? Noses are quite
No.
keen in here.
I might have set some things on fire before.
That's fair enough. I would have smelled if you were a smoker. What are you doing in here? And he kind of like around the corner. He kind of leans down, and you can see him skitter out on all four. He's not like well dressed, or he's got the little walking cane. This is not the Shrek 3 Blind Mice. It's just a mouse.
We're looking
That's
for our
talking.
grandma and possibly a witch that might have come through here.
Oh well, I mean we had a couple of squatters a bit ago, but I couldn't see where they went.
Like a gingerbread man?
No, not a gingerbread man. Would have smelled that. Probably would have eaten him.
Wait, is that cannibalism in fairy tale world?
No, it's gingerbread. I'm made of mouse.
Yeah, but if he's a living person and you're a living sentient being and you eat him,
Tell me
It
if a
just makes
dolphin
him a
could talk to you.
carnivore.
Right.
That just makes him a carnivore.
She's got the point. If a
Why did
dolphin
I
could
get
talk
an
to you, then
accent?
you could,
It's because I'm listening to JK.
Right. That's how that works.
So, tell us about these squatters you had. The women that came through.
Yeah,
did
no,
you-
there was oh, let's see. Wait, Carrig. I can't remember what they sounded like. Come back. You see a second mouse come out. It's what? And they start kind of murmuring to each other quietly, and then the one that he announced that came over, announced as Carrig, looks up at you and kind of sits up on his haunches, and he goes, "Yeah, no, there were 3 of them if I recall right. I've got the better memory than he. They were 2 older ladies, and then a real young girl. I don't know who.
3.
Right.
The number just
remember-
keeps growing.
can you remember anything they might have been talking about?
No, it's not me. Phil's got the better memory for that. Hey, Phil! Then the third mouse comes out, and they start murmuring again, and Phil pipes up, and he stands up, and he looks at you, and he goes, as far as I recall, the 2 older ladies were trying to take the younger girl back to her tail. She got kicked out. I don't know why.
Kicked out, like banished?
Kicked out of her story.
Well,
Yeah.
no, not like in a political sense. More like she was bullied out of the story.
Oh dear.
Doesn't that have like drastic effects on time and space for all of you?
Well, considering time and space is a terrible loop in which I am confined to be blind forever, not particularly. I'm still me, and I just eat from the garden and find some cheese in here.
I mean, if this was your house and I had to pick the lock to get through the gate, how did they get in here?
The story resets every once in a while, which is why we always find cheese in a cupboard. But we're all privy to it now, so we don't really do much other than, just wait for the cheese to come back, and then we just eat more.
I'll take one of the remaining sweets that Robotinus picked up earlier and put it on the floor and say, thanks for letting us know. I'm sorry for breaking into your house.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. Happens all the time. Too many people come in here, especially because we've all got the fire going. See it warm and cozy. Don't ever see anybody in here. Don't consider that rats live here.
I don't suppose you know what direction the three people went in.
Couldn't say, but if you're trying to figure that out, you might want to ask Rapunzel. And while you're at it, could you get those two to stop screaming about things? I'm really getting sick of it. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this sweet though. And he walks
You're welcome
over.
to it.
He kind of just climbs down on it and drags it back, and you can just go to shake it. Just kind of leaves the space.
Rapunzel's tower. So we go and meet the neighbors.
From the sounds of it, I don't want to meet the neighbors. I mean, it sounds like the trailer park at the end of the town. Like, I don't want to deal with screaming people.
Maybe...
Yeah, but she might need our help.
Help with what? Murdering her roommate? Look, I'm down for a B&E, but I'm not about to help anybody kill anybody.
I have a few books downloaded on my Kindle about conflict resolution. And she will start hitting buttons.
It's a bright 5th grader.
I'm just like, I mean, you guys know how I feel about conflict resolution. And then I kind of like spin my bat around so you guys can see that I've got like carved into the side of it. It just says problem solver.
Mm. Oh, good.
Good.
Well, we need more information, so we're going to have to go and see what we can find.
Okay.
I'll connect this to the simulation, though, while we're here, so we can get back from here.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Perfect.
Before we fully leave, are you guys any good at fighting?
Wait,
The rats?
I'm sorry, are you asking us?
Yeah, I mean, sure,
We are
you're
just-
blind, but you could be like blind martial artist mice. Like, you guys could be freaking amazing at like jump kicks.
Nope. In fact, we are just mice. Despite the fact that we can talk, if we were to end up in a tilly, we would 100% just be stepped on.
You'd be like, you have
Probably
like
best to
sharp
leave us
teeth,
here.
though.
Well, yeah, we've got sharp teeth. I could nibble on you if you're asleep, but if you're stomping around, I'm not sticking around.
I mean, if you launched yourself at somebody, I think you could get some height and use those teeth. You could get like a neck artery.
Look, I'm staying here
Look,
with this candy radish. I don't care if we can fight or not. I'm
Look,
really
man, I'm
not,
just trying to say, like, be a little bit more optimistic about your abilities, my guy.
Who do we
My
actually
guy?
encounter? Are you asking for a scrap?
I'm just saying, if we needed your help, like, could we call on you guys?
Oh, no, not at all. If you want to take some of the white whorehound on the way out, it's definitely beneficial if you ever do end up a smoker. Helps with the respiratory system.
All right. Well, thanks for nothing, I guess.
What are you talking about? I just gave you great herbal advice.
I think Laura is trying to usher everyone out at this point.
Okay. So you just
I don't think I don't want. I feel like the mice are getting more and more upset the longer we stay here.
Look, I'm just trying to be more encouraging. Like, I understand they're blind. I understand they like to stay at their house, but there's a vast world out there. If they could learn, some jump kicks, maybe to use their tails as whips or something, they could have some adventures. Like, look, they're cool dudes. I'm just trying to encourage them a little bit.
Now that would change their
You
story a
can
little
hear the
bit.
door swing shut behind you with as much force as 3 collective mice can close the door.
We should relock the gate on our way out, perhaps. Just
I
leave
have
it how we found it.
I think it's just gonna lock on its own, to be honest. Look, I know how to pick locks. I don't know how to relock a lock without, I don't know, a key.
Well, we have to go over a bridge, right? To get to the tower.
Yeah, and it's just a jump away. So you end up at the base of Rapunzel's tower. and you can hear just commotion inside. It's just yelling back and forth, some startled screams. And
I'm
then
gonna pound on the door, and I'll just be like, "This is the police. We've got noise complaints."
both voices stop. Everything inside stops, and you can hear.
Could Matilda do a quick? I mean, I'm gonna say like some sort of, because she is skilled in perception, to try to see if she recognizes, or would he recognize any of the words that either are saying, from like, oh, it's Rapunzel and so inside Rapunzel's house.
No. These are stone walls. These are heavy tower stone. You would have to be inside, or at least close enough to the upstairs window. But footsteps, everything stops, and you can hear steps against the cobble, and then the door opens, and there is a very, very tired, just sallow-eyed, scraggly-haired Rapunzel at the door, her hair trailing off. It looks like at some point she dyed just like a strand of her hair just for a highlight, but it's like 6-7 feet out from the roots at this point. And she looks at and she goes, "What? You're not the cops? What do you want?"
We're here to see what's going on with the noise, but we're also looking for our grandma who might have passed through here with a little girl and possibly a witch.
Well, look, I don't know anything about anybody who passed through, but I am knee deep in trying to get a replicating pea out from between these mattresses, and right now we have more peas than we know what to do with. And every time we shovel them away, there are more, and I can't handle it anymore. So unless you can get rid of them, best you leave. You get one in your pocket and you're done for. They don't stop.
This might help, and I hand her a lighter and a can of hair.
She looks at you and she kind of squints slow with all the tired of, "Do you really think we haven't tried hairspray before?" and just gestures to her hair.
I mean, you could. What is spraying with hairspray? You gotta set the whole thing on fire.
So Matilda will definitely, like, eyes wide, like gesturing to Laura and Robotanist. I think this is right up your guys' alley. Just kind of like trying to see if there's anything they can do.
If we can help you, do you think you'd be able to give us some more information?
Yeah, I might be able to help you out. I didn't actually interact with the people who passed through, but the princess in there likes to go out and rummage about and occasionally pick herbs from the mice's garden, so she might have seen something.
So is it one pea that's constantly replicating, or does that one pea then create one pea, and then they create 2 peas, and then they create 4 peas?
That's the thing. We don't know
like a
anymore.
Tribble. It's like a Star Trek Tribble.
Yes, it kind of feels like, to them, that is exactly what this feels like. But they're like, we don't know. It could be the original pea, or it could not be. The trouble is, I don't know which one is the original pea, and we can't clear them out fast enough to only have one in the house anymore.
See,
they're
I think
pouring from the mattress stack.
I think we could help you, because if it's just one pea that's just infinitely replicating, you could take that pea, and then you could sell those peas. You could call it like Green Giant or something, frozen peas.
Feels like too much work. I just want to sleep, okay? If you can...
Have you considered getting a new bed?
What? Do you know how expensive a mattress is? We've got 13
but that's why you sell
mattresses
the peas.
stacked on each other. I mean, I guess we could, if we found the one that the pea was in, we could just, you
I
know,
mean,
toss that one out the window. But
13
I don't
mattresses
know.
feels kind of excessive.
Have you read the story?
Do I
Like
look like I've read the
that's their whole
story?
shtick is just a whole lot of mattresses, and then the king's crazy, and he's like, "Here, you can bury the daughter if you can figure out which one doesn't have a pee in it." And it's like,
Do I look like I've read any stories?
I'm very tired. I don't know. I don't have that kind of perception anymore. I've run out of coffee 3 days ago.
You know,
I'm
the
subsisting
mice.
off of nothing, and I've heard that after 72 hours of never going to sleep, you can be considered clinically insane. Luckily, there's nobody to sign those papers here, but if you can get rid of the pee, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we could get rid of the pee, but are we even real?
Stop! And she just like covers her ears and like walks back in the house. She doesn't even bother about closing the door.
Laura, I think you guys could probably help out here. I've done my damage.
I think okay. Laura and Robotanist will be like, okay, we'll look for see what we can do with the pea, but maybe we'll also say like, perhaps you could go back to the mice's garden and get some chamomile or something that
Why
would
didn't
maybe
she just go nap in the mice's house? Like,
Listen, this is how we're going to do this. And you have Matilda on her little Kindle. And she's like, listen, I watched this on Star Trek once. So McCoy ends up showing up and telling Darwin, or reveals Darwin's like, I think a Klingon. Anyways, he ends up poisoning the grain or the whatever they eat. Anyways, so it absorbs the nutrients and it ends up, it's a whole thing. I watched it on Star Trek once, I swear. And so if we can find
Matilda,
no,
Matilda.
here's the thing is if you find an herb, then we can poison the peas and then.
But the peas aren't going to eat the herb. That's the disconnect here.
But it'll kill them. And she'll just, and
But
she's
how
just
is it
scrolling through.
How are you going to poison the pea? It doesn't have a mouth.
how can you kill a pea? How can you kill that which is not alive?
These are good questions, but I feel like if we do something to the peas, then it will affect all the peas. Like if you do something to one tribble, it does it to all the tribbles.
All right, I'm just gonna get in there and have Robotanist, scan around, see what the plant knowledge can if anything can determine.
Okay. So the base floor where this door is empty except for stacks and stacks of like garbage bags and like snow shovels, basically like wide trowels and stuff. And you can see the stairway that leads to the first floor of this tower appears to be recently blocked off, just like a wood shutter and down over and any of the gaps in like the knots of the wood, you can see just like a trickle of peas passing through these holes.
It feels like the story got like stuck on fast forward or something.
Get to the source, disease the source. I'm telling you, I saw this in Star Trek once, and she's just trying to frantically find.
We need to find the alpha P.
The triple episode, the alpha P.
Let's head up into the next floor.
Okay. So if you give it a basic push, this trapdoor is fairly heavy. And as you gain purchase on it, peas begin to pour through the space with enough speed that in order to climb through it, you're going to need some speed or a way to halt the peas.
All right. I think Robotanist is going to just give it a blast synthesis ray, but not the power boosting one this time. Just like it's a ray of concentrated solar energy to try and burn up a bunch of these peas enough so that we can climb through.
Absolutely. Get after it.
Where's the princess?
Probably not in the part of this attack.
She went up before you, like while you guys were chit chatting. She immediately just kind of turned tail and walked back up through the stairs.
Well, I feel like a lecture on responsibility and how to properly treat your roommates is in order.
What do we got for rolls over there, Zach?
So I just went with basic power since I'm not attacking like something that's defending itself, and I got 2 successes.
Okay, I'll call that. So he fires this beam of just pure sun up through the floor, and you can hear a gasp up above of just what is going on? But the amount of energy that goes up through burns all of the peas up through a pillar, and if you were looking at the top view, like standing where Rapunzel and the other princess are, the mountain of peas that is now trying to pour down towards that space is also just incinerating as it gets towards that space until that ray ends, leaving enough of a detriment in the peas' numbers for you guys to climb up through the space. Rapunzel is distraught because that sun ray has just severed her hair at about 25 feet.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's okay.
Shortened it by a good while.
It looks good, short Rapunzel. Don't worry about it.
It'll grow back, right?
Before you sits 13 mattresses on a stand. They have kind of like a pallet base, and then just a stack of mattresses. Not all perfectly level with each other either. They all seem to be like kind of mismatched and misaligned all the way up. And you can see the folds in the corners of some of them where presumably you'd watch the Princess and the Pea like use these mismatches as footholds as she'd climb up to the top of them.
Presumably, if it follows the story, the original Pea must be at the bottom of the mattresses, right?
I thought it was in the middle.
Somewhere in there.
Matilda is frantically trying to escape out of her Star Trek hole that she has dug herself in her Kindle, and is trying to look up the Princess and the Pea book to see if she knows where the Pea is located.
Okay. For you, give me I believe it's reflex.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a reflex roll.
Ooh.
We're gonna need some speed before these peas begin to pour.
2 successes, but they were 2 6s, so I don't know if that matters.
2 successes. Okay. So pretty swiftly you make it back to your current content at hand, and you find that it is indeed, as described, the bottom of the mattresses. And no sooner than you say that, you can watch the whole 13 stack just kind of shift a little bit, almost being raised like one of the stovetop popcorns. It's like lifting the mattress stack in sequence as the peas begin to pour out again.
Laura will ask. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe Laura will say, like, "Can we get the Animon to like coordinate and get this thing out of here somehow? Is there a window? Maybe flying it out might be better."
Like flying the one Pea out, or
yeah, maybe if we fly the Pea out, it will. I mean, at least it won't be filling the tower with vegetables.
I mean, if you can figure out which is the alpha Pea, then Malum could definitely fly it out. But we gotta know. First off, I don't want to just drop this Pea on somebody else and curse them to a life of avalanches of peas.
We throw it in the ocean if there is one around,
Wouldn't
in the river.
I mean, if we threw it in the river, they're pretty quickly going to have just a river of water and peas.
Just
So
mushy peas after a while.
listen, mushy peas are delicious.
I've only
What
been
if you?
told.
Oh no! Don't eat the pea.
What if we dropped
I
the
was
pea?
just gonna offer to eat the pea.
What if we
That is-
dropped the pea with the wolves? Then they'll never be hungry.
Maybe if wolves like to eat peas, that could work.
I mean, they look like Animon wolves. I don't really know what Animon like to eat and don't like to eat. Like Fang here, I just throw stuff at him and he eats it.
Or what if we find them in their own little patch of land and they can do their own little weird pea tribble thing and have their own little colony of pea lives?
I feel like you're giving them life that they don't have.
I'm gonna. Laura will ask Robotinist to try and reach in. He has slightly like extendo robot arms.
Perfect.
Not that that's an actual quality on the character sheet, but just in the art.
Flavor.
Flavor it.
Yeah.
And maybe try and grab the pea, and then we'll see. We'll see after that. That's step one, and then we'll figure out step two afterwards.
Fair enough. When you're dealing with an avalanche of peas, that's the best you can hope for. Okay. I would like... I will let you choose between this one, but this will either be heart or agility. It's kind of based on determination or the quickness of him just...
I think it will
taking it out
be
of there.
much more for a botanist. It will be like planting his feet on the floor and just trying to resist the tide of peas and reach in and grab the original one. So I'll go for heart. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if it helps, I can put my back up against Robotinist to brace him.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Let's see.
You know what? That is indeed helpful in the tide of this many peas. I'll give you three pluses on this.
All right. Well, that's fantastic because it goes from 1 success before to 3 successes now with that boost.
Very good. Well, I was looking for 3, so
Excellent.
way to be Zach. So yeah, you dig in your heels on the stone and back to back with Robotinist as he begins to extend his arms carefully underneath this mattress, fishing about, and you can eventually feel it because it is the pea that all other peas is being ejected from, and he grabs it and manages to reel it back, and you can watch, just with furious force being held in the way that it is, just peas leaving both sides of his hand.
Oh God.
He's doing his best to hold on.
Do we try and crush it, or like?
I don't know. Do what you want. Nobody's ever gotten that close to the pea before. It started.
Where did this pea come from? Like, did she move in with this pea?
Yeah, the pea's always been in the
she-
mattress stack. That was part of the story, but I don't know why it started doing the thing that it was doing.
Do you guys have any enemies? Did she piss anybody off before she came here?
Oh, not that I can think of. I know a witch used to live in the house next door, but like,
Oh, again with the witches.
I mean, we've never had any beef with them. They were good neighbors for a while,
Were they?
as far as I'm aware. Why? Did you suspect something?
We haven't even encountered the witch. We just hung out with the mice.
Oh, yeah. Well, makes sense.
In the meantime, I think Robotinist, perhaps in a panic, is just gonna like try and clench down and crush the original pea.
Okay, give me a give me a power roll.
Yeah. Let's see. Nope. No successes.
No successes. So as hard as he tries to squeeze down, the flow of these peas is too great for him to actually find enough purchase to stamp this pea out.
So you will see Cece whisper into my ear, and you'll see Matilda get very like she'll nod and she'll reach into her pocket and pull out the butter knife that has been here, hand it to Cece, and Cece's going to run at this and just make an attack.
With a knife.
At the pea being held by the robotanist.
Like,
Correct.
Robotanist can, like, set it up, toss it up like
Yeah, we're just trying to
baseball.
in my head, in Matilda's head, or in Chrissy's head playing Matilda, it's like being held like kind of like out, like, oh my gosh, and Cece's just running up and stabbing it.
I just
Okay.
want to see this play out.
This
so
was
I'm just
such
gonna,
a wholesome stream until I did this, and I apologize.
No, I love it. Please make an attack roll, and I will roll a defense for the pea.
P defense.
What is a pea's natural AC?
Let's see.
Just to be clear, this is an initiative roll, right?
No, this is just an attack. Because we're not in
okay.
initiative, so you don't need to...
Oh, okay. All right.
Just give us an attack, and I gotta roll a dodge.
For a pea to dodge, it would have to have innate agility. What is a pea's natural agility score?
I will explain that here in a moment once I find...
Maybe Matilda
the...
was more on the money with these peas than we
Okay.
thought.
What did you roll?
I rolled a 5.
You
And
just-
I would have never expected that, and I just am. This is very funny to me.
Okay. So, Zach, for arbitration here, so I don't have to go look it up because I can't remember. How are
Sure.
ties between attack and dodge?
Ties between attack and dodge are always favored on the attacker side.
Okay. Very good,
Okay.
because it got
Yeah, sure.
1-6, and that
Yeah,
is it.
because the kid should always win. FYI.
So this tiny... Is it it's Cece that's running towards it, right? Or is it...
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this tiny turtle goes just clambering towards Robotanist with a pea clutched in his hand, and with furious vigor stabs straight down through the gap in his hand where the peas are ejecting, and just skewers all of the peas all the way through. And on the bottom of this butter knife, apart from like the couple peas that it was in the process of replicating, in the center of the ones that had been skewered, you can see a tiny pea with a tiny wide-eyed face,
Oh, no!
just being like,
Oh god!
JK! What the fuck?
and then it just kind of evaporates in a green smoke,
Oh my god!
and the troubles in Rapunzel's tower have been ceased.
Look, I know how to break into places. I've set some places on fire. I carry a baseball bat around with me that's called Problem Solver, but I have never killed a sentient being.
Okay, so for reference, I somehow end up always breaking JK's games, and I'm very sorry. And I
That wasn't a game break.
Okay,
You very
I
well
appreciate
could
that.
have fought
The
a
pea was alive?
Yeah, the pea was a tiny Animon. Just a little one.
Oh god. Oh god.
Matilda is going to obviously look horrified as she realizes what she just compelled her Animon to do.
So, like, are the other peas just peas? Or did we just kill this thing in front of its family and now they're, like, staring at us in shock?
So, if you look down and you take a look through all of the peas, these just appear to be peas. It was just the one Animon that was presumably using its signature skill to replicate peas. But, Matilda, I will present this because we are playing a wholesome game. There is a section on page 69 that reads, when Animon are destroyed, their essence returns to their world and is reconstituted into a new Animon egg, which will soon hatch into a new fledgling stage Animon. In this way, they never truly die either, but can still be lost to a degree. So, the Animon has gone from this current predicament and may be recorporealized into a different form later, but its essence still lives on through the universe of the Animon.
Okay, good.
Yeah, don't worry, Matilda. We'll definitely face off against the evil P again somewhere.
It's just haunting you forever now. At least it is
Going back
CC.
for revenge.
Rated R starts Friday. All right, so Rapunzel just waits for things to get bad again. Not quite sure in her tired incoherency that they look around and they're like, well, it's over. Oh, God, it's over. We did it. You did it. But like Rapunzel runs up and just picks up the turtle and just spins with Cece for a second. Tired enough that it wraps her hair around the bottom of her ankles and she falls backwards into the remaining peas with Cece just like held up into the sky. The princess of Princess and the Pea fame looks at all of these peas and goes, I never thought that was gonna happen. Maybe this was a weird sleeping habit that I've gotten myself into.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You move in here with Rapunzel. You move into Rapunzel's tower with this replicating P that you've had problems with before you moved in here.
I didn't know
and
it
you bring
replicated,
those problems
to be fair.
and just kind of throw them on Rapunzel. It's kind of selfish.
Okay, first of all, Rapunzel invited me here. Second of all, I didn't know it replicated before I got here, so don't be rude. And third of all, we're fine now. Everything worked out, right?
Let's talk about rude though. Like, you have driven Rapunzel out of her damn mind. Like, she doesn't even know that we're real. She
She's
thinks
just
that
tired.
we're figments of her imagination.
So, Matilda's going to go, okay. And, Robotness, any chance you have any good, soothing chamomile tea that the princess could drink and get a nice, good, calming night's sleep, but not until after she gives us all the information she knows. Okay, thank you.
I'm sure we could get some from the herb garden, maybe.
Rapunzel sits up, the stress having left her completely, and with the last amount of consciousness she has, she goes, you know what, actually, I think I'm okay. I'm just going to sleep in the peas. But, you're looking for the people who came through. I actually helped them out. I lied. They went to Goldilocks' house. And just passes out in the pea pile.
Okay. Well, I don't feel like we should stick around here for much longer. God only knows what could happen.
Okay. So.
On the way out, I'll say
yes.
to the princess, consider a waterbed or something.
She goes,
How bougie is it that you have 13 mattresses?
it's gifts from Dad, so I mean, they're older. I could use a new mattress. Waterbeds sound okay. I've heard purples aren't bad either, but I should look into it. Anyway, thank you guys. I appreciate it very much. We out of our minds with all of that. So please, she points and kind of gives you directions towards Goldilocks' story. And for the sake of time here, we're going to just skip the traveling to that space. You reach this homestead with 3 people. One you recognize as your grandmother. One you could presumably recognize as the witch from the gingerbread house. And the other one being Goldilocks. All currently tied up to, like, stakes pounded into the ground in front of Goldilocks' home.
God, I thought murdering a pea was the worst thing we were
Well,
going to
okay,
encounter.
it doesn't look like they're going to burn him to death. It's not like we're going to burn the witches. They're just tied up right now. But around them, there are 3 bears, all of which larger than you recall from what bears should be, but also a little bit more anthropomorphic than you remember as well. And Papa Bear is looking at the 3 of them and kind of walks over to Goldilocks as you guys are approaching from behind. Nobody's quite seen you yet, and he looks at Goldilocks, and you can hear him just because of how loud he is. And he's like, "You stinking palooka. I told you to leave this place. I don't care how many beds we don't like here. We've been around these woods too long. We're gonna take it. This is our house now. You gotta beat it. You understand?" And then the youngest bear, baby bear, is just like energetically, "Yeah, this is our house now. Get out."
Can we, like, they don't notice us, like they don't see us?
No, they haven't noticed you yet. They're very just paying attention to.
If we look around, is there like a spot we could kind of like hide or like duck down and kind of like sneak closer or like kind of like around them without them kind of noticing us?
Yeah, in fact, what you're looking at is you've got... Here, let me see if I can do this on stream. Let me orient myself. So here would be you guys. Then there's a fence. Then there's the staked up ladies and the bears. Then there's the cottage. The fence is high enough and secure enough that you could basically crouch behind it without visual and wrap the house. Because they are inside the yard doing this.
Let's get up close then if we can, yeah.
No. I need you guys to stay back here.
Oh, okay.
I need you to create a bit of a commotion off to the side here where you can't be seen, but the noises will be enough that it draws their attention.
I'm sure we can do that.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Now, I'm going to jump this fence. And as I go to jump this fence, you guys kind of hear me shaking a can of hairspray.
You're gonna light one of the bears on fire.
And I'm going to jump over the fence, and I'm going to basically like torch at the house.
Okay. Yeah, so you're gonna... All right. What are you guys doing to cause a distraction? Or, wait, are you causing a distraction for them to move in?
Yeah, I want to cause a distraction so that the bears are distracted and they can try to untie the people from the stakes.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Sure. So Matilda will, on her Kindle, pull up a YouTube video of fireworks or some sort of like loud banging sound.
Okay.
And look towards Laura and Robotnist and go, this is the best I could do. Do you have any other ideas?
That's probably enough for us to get in and try and untie them if the bears are distracted.
Okay. So,
Okay.
Zach, go ahead and roll spirit for me. Matilda, you will be looking at logic in response to Zach's fire plans. And Lara, I'm looking for reflex, because you will be the first on the scene for the untie.
Okay.
So I rolled 1-6.
Okay.
I had 2 5s. Well, yeah, 2 5s. Out of
I got
4.
one success over here.
Okay. So, for Zach's is the only one of these that failed outright as far as the progress here. So you start rattle canning this hairspray, light the lighter. You are prepped, and you vault over this wall as Matilda sets off on full volume this firework noises and things, and the bears start looking around in just enough time for you to leap the space. But as you do, your foot catches in a rut in the yard, and you go down hitting that hairspray on the open lighter, and just the grasses just immolate
Oh, no.
all the way across the yard and begin to burn through the brush of the yard. Laura, as these bears begin to look off in other directions, you can make it to these stakes, but you have very little time to do much at this point, because that fire is spreading in various directions.
I am gonna run in, and I'm gonna yell back to Matilda and Cece, saying, "We could probably use some water over here." But then, yeah, I'm gonna run in with Rapunzel to try and start untying.
Okay.
Yes.
Give me another Can you do reflex assisted by your Animon? Because this really should be a conjunction for the two of you here.
Sure. I in terms of the rules, usually it would be like you'd roll either using the kids' stats or the Animon stats, whichever was most relevant, and then if there was like a way they were helping each other out, maybe just a boost on the rolls, 3
Okay.
pluses.
Yeah, so it's gonna be either reflex or agility. So whichever one of you has the higher, and then we'll consider it a boost.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the reflex, because agility, is not Robotanist's strong suit.
It didn't seem like it, but you know.
So that's 2 successes that time.
2 successes, very good. Matilda, how are you responding?
Yeah, so I would imagine Matilda being wildly panicked.
Okay.
She would, as probably Laura is running away from her, take the butter knife out of her pocket and go, "Take this with you," and just throw it in an attempt to help with cutting the rope that is holding the people to the stakes. So she's gonna throw a knife at you. I'm sorry. But also probably panic, turning to Cece and being like, "Cece, we gotta put out these fires," and just like running around and like pointing to different places and just like trying to get her to use her icy breath and her water traits, because she is aquatic technically,
so
to help get some of the fires that are immediately threatening Grandma and her friends at least slow down.
Okay, perfect. And then before I have...
I'm sorry for throwing a knife at you.
Before I get some rolls resolutions on you two then, or actually your results, your rolls, Zak, what are you doing in this fracas? You've caught yourself back up. You're on your feet again. There is fire, leaving from in front of your feet.
I'm just kind of awestruck. I'm just looking at the fire like, all right. I mean, I started a fire. That was my goal.
Okay.
What are the bears doing?
The bears, and I guess I arbitrated this a little bit, so I apologize, Matilda. But what I understood of this was she was lighting off this fireworks YouTube video, and I just kind of picture this being temporarily just like slid through the grasses in some direction, so they're not on to you guys. So the bears, 2 of them are still heading that direction, or at least trying to figure out what's going on. One of them has started to turn, but one of them is also starting to catch fire. So that one's not having a good time.
Which one started to turn?
The one that turned is the one that's starting to catch fire.
Yeah, but is it the mama, the baby?
That would be Mama Bear.
All right, so I want to run up on Mama Bear and I want to kneecap her.
With the bat? Or
Yes.
What is happening? Okay.
I'm taking her down. She was threatening Grandma. I got to do what I got to do.
Okay. All right. So, Ooh, let me grab Mama Bear's stats. Give me an attack roll.
Attack roll. Two.
Oh, that's 2 successes on their end, too. Winner goes to you. So, trying to stamp this out, you just take that bat one hearty swing, and you can hear the snap, the snap of the bat right at its base, and presumably something else terrible popping in the knee of this bear as it goes down and just lands into the dirt. By this point, Matilda, you have tossed this knife. Laura has caught it. Robotanist is kind of using himself to brace these people as Laura is cutting them free, and the 3 drop. Mama Bear roaring in the grasses. Cece putting out fires where she can. Are you guys peeling out? You technically have an easy exit right now, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just gonna point and just be like, go, go, go.
Yeah, I think that seems like a sensible decision.
Yeah, and I would probably, Matilda would probably be yelling over to Laura, "Don't forget the program. We can get through this all very quickly." Like, just to expedite the exit.
Yeah, I just have to check I pull out my laptop while I'm running and like tap in the simulation, figure out where the shortcut is that we need to hop through to get back to like a safe zone, maybe back to the beginning.
Okay. I'm going to arbitrate how we get to the end scene then, depending on a final logic roll from yourself.
Of course. Can I add my programming talent to
yes,
this?
You may.
Okay, great. Okay. Wow. That's 5 successes.
Beautiful. Absolutely spectacular.
Way to go.
Yeah, killer.
Crack open this laptop. Good thing Grandpa's got 5G. Like, he's this
In the book.
Oh no, it's in the house. You're in the house in the book, so the Wi-Fi translates. So you managed to find this page lapse, and in your cartoon running across the edges of the expanse of this story, you can see the ground start to ripple as if you're kind of leafing pages, as the chunk of chapters beneath you flips, and you find yourself back at the gingerbread man's house. Is that where we were heading?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems good.
Okay.
Probably back at the beginning as quickly as possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you find yourself being launched with the velocity of 4 chapters at a time back into the gingerbread man's yard.
We don't collapse into his house again.
No, but you do mow through a bunch of his crops as you all kind of skid and roll through the dirts. But you all climb back to your feet, and Granny and the witch and Goldilocks all look at the 3 of you, and Grandma looks at the 3, and she's like, Did Grandpa let you in here?
Yes, we came to rescue you.
Rescue me from what? I've been
Well,
fine.
You were tied to a stake.
That's not even the 3rd time that those bears have tried to tie me to a thing. My Animon would have been back around after a while.
Grandma, how often does this happen to you?
Ooh. I just breathed vodka.
Grandma, you're breathing vodka?
She looks at... She's like, I mean, look, I don't normally stay this long, but I come in here every once in a while because your grandpa just doesn't understand some things about, a relationship between a person and their Animon, and we have a no pets policy in the house, and he was adamant that that carried through. And admittedly, my Animon is a bit too big to be able to bring inside, so I keep him in the book. And things got a little wild here, and so I figured I'd do some mopping up before I went home. I'm perfectly fine, and evidently so are the three of you and all of the stories that you've passed through. This was, fruitful, I think. We got to where we needed to be with resolving things.
We're definitely fine, but I'm not sure I could say the same thing for the stories that we passed through.
just mild muffled screaming from inside the gingerbread man's house, and you can hear Old Red being like, "No, it's okay. Like it's fine. Don't overthink it. Take a Xanax. You'll be all right."
I was gonna ask if he was like in a corner, just like shaking.
Probably.
Back and forth.
I mean, you guys are outside the hut at this point. But as these guys are talking and things, you see approaching from the tree line, you can hear branches snapping, and a heavy breeze moves through the space, and everybody whips around and turns to the wood, and you can see a very large 10, 12 foot tall anthropomorphic, no, not anthropomorphic, a little bit more like Fenrir style wolf,
Ooh.
breaking through the tree line, and it kind of snarls and looks around and braces itself, and you can see the back of its neck start to bristle as it takes a deep breath. And instead of exhaling, you can watch its maw go slack and its tongue kind of hang out the side of its mouth as it barrels and just spear tackles Grandma into the ground, and you can see Grandma just very excited, kind of ruffling the sides of its fur. And she kind of turns and giggles to the three of you, and she goes, "This is why the no pets policy has to be enforced. It's a bit big for the size of our retirement home."
I can see that. Yeah.
It was just a pup when I found them. Very unique Animon, but it's been with me for a long time.
That's amazing. Is it evolved?
Oh, several times. It was not even near this big, or had taken on any of the traits of the quintessential big bad wolves until it began to evolve. Wow. It was more or less almost closer to like a gray fox when I found it, size-wise. But we're a good ways in at this point, so we've known each other for a long time. And as it's survived in these stories, it's evolved and taken on some of the traits of the other big bads around, like the menace of the pigs out that way, and the one that was unfortunately smited down by Old Red a little while ago.
We didn't get round to the pigs. I can only imagine what sort of chaos would have ensued there.
It's best to avoid the pigs. They're too busy in their own work and paperwork and architectural litigations.
Oh my god.
Sounds thrilling.
Would you like to maybe come back and just see Grandpa and just let him know that you're all right? It might settle his nerves a little.
Oh, of course. I wasn't planning on staying here forever. Sometimes I just need a bit of a vacation from the mundane, you know. But yes, I'm ready to leave. And she looks at her Animon and looks over at the witch of the gingerbread house and goes, "Margaret, would you mind?" And Margaret opens the shutters to this gingerbread house and leans into the house itself and pulls and like lifts the gingerbread man out of the window and just kind of bats him a little bit. It's like, "No, stop it. Stop it. We've been through this. You're fine. You're not even... I don't think you're made out of the same materials.
He's made out of... It's a gingerbread house. He's a gingerbread man.
And he's primarily a molasses-based, and that is genuine ginger cookie. It's not the same cookie dough at all.
Gingerbread is gingerbread.
No, you should read a cookbook. Genuinely, they are different.
Listen, lady, the same thing that was asked to me earlier. Do I look like I've read any book?
Would you mind? And the gingerbread man looks at Grandma and then the three of you, the six of you, and he goes, "Yeah, no, I'd be happy to send him back. Give me a sec." And this gingerbread hut's Animon, which is this very existentially dreading gingerbread man, uses his signature move and basically teleports you from one space to the other. Not quite as traditional as the book getting in, but Grandma's found it useful, so you all wind up back, sans the big bad wolf that Grandma has made friends with. You all find yourself back in Grandpa's house.
Well, we did it.
It seems you did. And he puts down his newspaper and stands up and walks over and gives Grandma a hug. He goes, "Oh, it's been a while. It's been like a week, and we just finished lunch, so are you gonna stay for dinner?" She chuckles. It's like, "I'm making dinner. You were never any good at that." And gives him a kiss on the forehead and walks into the kitchen. And Grandpa looks at the three of you and he goes, "I very much appreciate it. She does indeed make dinner, and I don't know what I'd do if I had to only eat lunch every day."
Aww.
You only know how to make lunch.
Well, I only know lunch foods. So I could make lunch 3 meals a day, but I feel like I would get dreadfully bored. Also,
Grandpa,
yes.
I think you and Grandma should probably look into getting like a nurse or like just someone to look in on you guys.
Yeah,
You
some
only-
sort of carer for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you need like a caregiver, maybe Meals on Wheels. Someone could come sit with you every week and just talk to you.
He leans like real close and he goes, "I spent a week in this house by myself, communing with no one else. And this place is spotless. And I'm alive. So you can keep the nursing home away from me and Grandma. Because
Excuse me, Grandma thinks it's
I'm
okay to
good.
be tied to stakes. I had to kneecap a bear. Do you know what that does to a child's psyche?
Well, all's well that ends well.
all's well that ends well. Because as this conversation progresses towards dinner and we have our happily ever after, save for a couple questionable endings within the book, that is our playthrough of Animon Story. And thank you so much all for watching. We have a short segment of stuff following this for some chitter-chatter with the author and some talk about how the session went, how the game went, how it felt, the mechanics, the art, But I had a blast. It's lots of fun to
I
play.
had a great time too. Awesome.
This was very good. Very good.
It's interesting, and I think it set me out of my comfort zone as far as games, because my absolute favorite kind of games to run are horror games, admittedly. And this game was designed thematically very, very wholesome, very uplifting, bright colors, soft edges. It's very, very cute, and it works in such a way, the way that it's read and the way that like the death information on the page 69 reinforces the idea that this is meant to be just kind of a fun romp through this childhood experience, and I appreciate that about a system that wants you to bind thematically with what with what it wants to present mechanically. So I think it did exactly what I wanted it to, because it pulled me out of my comfort zone and said, all right, how do I make this, just a goofy, kind of chill time for everybody? And that was a blast.
Yeah, I thought it's great tying in the fairy tale stuff as well. I love that. That's brilliant.
I play a lot of like Digimon. I play a lot of Pokemon. I would hands down play an Animon video game that had the freaking fairy tale book in it. So
it was,
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Absolutely.
non-canon officially. That book does not exist in Animon Story, but also my gift to you. Play with it as you'd like. Yeah, I mean, so I'll open it up to everybody here. Zach is out in the UK, so it's admittedly fairly late over there. But
Oh, it's all right.
are you sure? So we normally run
Yeah,
these...
no worries.
Okay, so we normally run these till 10. So we've 10 here. We've got an hour still, technically. But anybody, if you have any questions about the system, or for Zach, or for any of us in the chat, feel free to throw them down now. It's the perfect time to do so. And then, as well as any of the players or myself, like, and even Zach yourself, like, this is a place for just conversation. We kind of relax and just sit back and talk
Sure,
about the system and how it was designed, why, things like that. A big collective interview.
One thing I thought was interesting about this session, which is different to other sessions of Animon Story that I've run or played, is there was actually no Animon versus Animon battling in this session, which I thought was very cool, because I guess that's just become such a fallback option in my head for when I run games. It's like, okay, Animon battles, but actually when you're thinking about how the Animon can help you solve other sorts of problems as well, which is very much, it's not a combat heavy game at all. I think it's really fun that you can go, through an adventure like this, which isn't just about, fighting Animon like a tournament in Pokemon or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a different sort of adventure to any that I've seen or played before, and I had a great time. So thanks very much.
I appreciate that. No, thank you. It's not with that it's designed, though. There was actually the opportunity for, I think, an Animon fight in every different episode or every different story.
I could see the potential, but we sort of skirted a lot of in our own unique way, I think, this time, didn't we?
Which was fun to watch, because I didn't force any fights that weren't, something that couldn't be there. So I like seeing a system, and that's part of kind of what I was testing there, is I like seeing a system that is not reliant on combat for the use of, like, the powers and things. And I think you guys used the Animon was very, very, very fun to puzzle solve with and see their personalities.
It is interesting, because one thing that we would have found if those battles had happened is that they tend to be quite short and sharp, and not necessarily in a way of like a really intense like OSR dungeon crawling game or something like that, where you're going to get killed every encounter or whatever, but just in the fact that the damage stats compared to the HP stats tends to work out that a couple of good hits can take down an Animon, particularly in like the earlier levels of the game, which means that it's risky. Like obviously the Animon don't die or anything like that. They, especially particularly PC Animon, will go unconscious for a bit and then come back after you've rested and so on. But it does have lasting effects, and it definitely, like, I could have seen us getting into some trouble if we tried to sort of pick a fight at the wrong moment. But yeah, I thought it was very very interesting how we got through that.
Yeah, great fun to watch. For Fail and Chrissy, tell me what your experiences were. This was your first time with the system itself. Talk to me about reading through the mechanics and kind of what you liked, anything you had questions on.
Fail, do you want to go first? Do you want me to?
You can go first.
Okay. So, I have to admit, and I said this prior to game start, is that I do not have any working knowledge of like Pokemon or Digimon or too much past like general pop culture knowledge. So, when I was invited to this game and I was like reading through it, I was like, oh no, this is a whole world I am not going to be able to understand, and I am not well enough equipped. Um, but the PDF, so the story itself, like the PDF for the players, is like very concise and very well written. It was easy to understand. I do have some history, and we kind of touched on it. Zach, the writer, I'm going to talk to you kind of specifically. We touched on just a little bit prior to game start about familiarity. It felt reminiscent of Tales from the Loop, which was awesome because that's one of my all-time favorite games to play. So it was easy for me to like hop into the kid mindset, which is where when you were kind of talking about that, wow, I'm really surprised there was no player versus player kind of like Animon battles. My Tales from the Loop brain was having an absolute blast of like, so part of the mechanic in Tales from the Loop, guys, if you're not familiar, if you've never played it, give it a shot, is that like, one, the kiddos can't die, and like two, whatever they say in the game kind of goes, and the GM just rolls with it as long as they're successful in their rolls. So I kind of went that way with the story because I wasn't super familiar with the Pokemon piece, or I don't want to say Pokemon, Animon piece.
Oh no, I understand what you mean. Yeah,
totally. Like I don't have too much knowledge of the mechanics of how that would work. So I kind of leaned more into the kiddo story with some helper assistance from the Animon. And I loved it. I loved the idea of like my kiddo having just like a little companion creature who could like help them successfully complete all of their hopes and dreams. I thought that was super cool. I loved it.
That's great. That's great to hear. I think it's interesting coming at it from that perspective, because well, yeah, Tales from the Loop is a game I absolutely love and took inspiration from that for this game as well, because it's set around kid characters. It's very much based around emulating tropes, although very different ones, mostly from this game. But when it comes down to the mechanics, when it relates to Animon, inspiration that it draws from Pokemon and things like that, it's really more about the type of story and much less about emulating any particular like part of those games. Like it's not about simulating Pokemon battles or anything like that. So I think coming at it from a perspective of, oh, it's a story that is focused on kid characters, and whether or not you know anything about Pokemon or Digimon or whatever, hopefully, I'm very happy to hear that that was, you know, enough of a hook to give you like the idea and go from there to have a good time. Because yeah, I tried to make sure that there was a wide appeal in there, and that people wouldn't feel too bad if they hadn't like watched any particular anime series or played any particular games or anything like that. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, no, I'll actually chime in real quick before I want to hear Phil's thoughts on it. But I played a couple of sessions ago on the top shelf. We played Overarms. Are you familiar with the system?
I am sort of on a surface level familiar with it. Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah, so it's the only other system that I've played in which you're basically managing two different stat blocks simultaneously. You know, you have your character and then you have your anima, or in this case, animon, that is entirely tied to you. And I think the through lines for them open up an interesting possibility for tabletop RPGs in general, because there's not a lot of systems in which you're so directly managing this close tie with something else that is entirely its own being, that's an integral part of the story. The only thing that I could even think of is D&D's attempt at that with like animal companions for a ranger, but it's not even the same feel. Like there's a certain kind of chemistry mesh that these sorts of games like Animon Story or Overarms require for you to play two things as a player that are their own things with their own personality. And it's really fascinating to see players, at least from a GM perspective, do stuff like, you know, Laura's opinions on stuff, and then like Robotanist's little quips and quirks and things that he was doing, and it gives a lot more range, it feels like, for a player to play in.
I've had the pleasure to play this game with plenty of people and run it for plenty of people at this point, and it really is very interesting how people kind of slip into their natural iteration of that kind of playing two characters and how the relationship works. Like there is guidance in the book, but ultimately it comes down a lot to how people prefer to role play. You know, even if you are just playing one character, some people prefer to like take a step back and they'll, you know, narrate everything in third person and be a bit more of an overview, whereas other people really like to jump in and role play everything. Whereas with this one, you have two, like it is something that I like to talk about with people, is like to say, how do you think you'd prefer to do this, like before we play? But ultimately, I've found that people tend to kind of just slip into a natural rhythm. And sometimes that will mean the GM will occasionally jump in and like give a little bit of flavor from the Animon perspective, or role play the Animon sometimes, particularly in situations where you want to have conversations between the kid and the Animon, which can happen sometimes because the relationship between them is like kind of a central part of the character development as you grow. So it's very different from group to group and from person to person as well. And I just find it so interesting to see how different people make that their own. Because yeah, as I said, the book has guidance on playing two characters, but that is about as firm a line as I could take in the book, really, because it's just such a varied thing. You can't really tell people how to play their character to that degree. But
no, that's cool though. I'd imagine trying to arbitrate that while writing and figuring out what the best approach on that is would be interesting. But
yeah, in an original draft of the game, it was set strictly that the GM plays the Animon and the players play the kids, because I suppose at a ground level, the fantasy that the game's trying to fulfill is like you have an Animon partner, you have a Pokemon, you have a Digimon, like that's the fantasy. So the original version had the players be the kids, and then they were able to obviously control their partner, but they were always played by the GM. But realized that doing it this way just opens so much more possibility for role playing, and also allows the players to give the Animon a lot more personality, and play them in a way that they want. Because compared to something like you said, sort of the animal companion from D&D or something, you know, Animon can speak, they have their own personalities, and they are intended to be like characters of their own, on the same level as the kids. So yeah, it's very interesting to see how people do that. I always love to see that.
Absolutely. No, I've enjoyed everybody's different approaches to stuff too. Fail, what'd you think about everything?
I think it's great. I think it opens up a lot in terms of like I actually got to be more of myself for this, as opposed to playing a D20 system, a D&D system, where if I tried to be a delinquent in D&D, it just ends up being murder hobo. It just ends up going around pissing off guards and killing people, and that's not my personality. Like, yeah, I'm kind of a delinquent in real life. Like, I like to go out and cause problems. I like to cause pranks and be kind of wild. That's how I grew up. And I think that being able to portray that here was amazing. And it made it more fun to play, to actually be able to be myself and not have to act like a murder hobo at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in systems where you're playing just kids, because I think there's a lot of translation as an adult to playing a child version of yourself, or a kid version of a character, that kind of sets you a couple levels deeper in make believe than you get to with something like D&D almost. Chrissy, you've got words to say.
I do. So I know Zach doesn't know me that well. I'm sure I know Fail does, and I know JK does, but the psych nerd in me loves hearing stuff like that. So as a therapist, as like a person who works with people who, I mean, I love hearing that there's a gaming system out there, and this makes me and this was going to be the next thing I shared with Zach, the writer, is that as a child therapist and as somebody who works directly with children with like a lot of reactive attachment disorders, who have like a lot of like, what are identified sometimes as quote unquote like delinquent or maladaptive behaviors, whatever you want to address that as. I call it trauma usually, but so hearing an adult say like, hey, it was really cool to like tap into in a like healthy way my childhood, or be this part of my personality that I can't be on a regular basis. This is a game that I would 110% take to work and sit down with a group of like 12 or 13-year-old kids who have some familiarity with Pokemon or Digimon, or like some sort of, because right now, like, I have a focus in that therapeutic gaming, but like, they want to talk about and bring into these like character ideas and these stories into their lives, and like hearing that it works for adults just as much as I know it could work for a kiddo or somebody that I see in my office. I'm like, hell yes, bring all of that into my office. Let's start a game, let's get it going, because I think that adults for some reason let go of that imaginative state where we can add in our like real life personality traits into our fantasy world without being quote unquote like problematic. I like that Fail touched on, if he were to do this in a D&D world, he would just be like a problematic PC just running around and murdering things and doing whatever. Whereas this gives him a little bit more autonomy in that space, and I love that. I think it's great. But this is 100% a game that I am going to take to work and be like, hey, how many of you kiddos, because right now they're super into Pokemon Snap, so I talk about it probably every day of my life. I talk about it every single day, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I try real hard.
Well, that's great to hear. That's really cool. I think there's definitely something in, of course, that well, for people who might not know, watching, the kid characters are based on archetypes. There's 10 of them in the book, and they were based on tropes that you would get in stories. So there's the bookworm, the computer wizard, there's delinquent, there's also some that we didn't have in this game. There's like the little kid who's like the little sibling who's kind of tagging along. There's a jock. There's kind of the rising star who's like the popular kid kind of thing, and they're all based on narrative tropes that you find in these sorts of stories. But I think the reason that they are tropes is maybe because a lot of people can identify with one of those kind of archetypes and see something in themselves. And on top of that, one thing that I wanted to do with the character creation, and particularly for the kids, is that there's really no like list of options to pick from other than your type, your kid type, the talents that the kid has, and as well as the flaws and all of that, you make up yourself rather than, you know, choosing from a set list of options. So it definitely can give people the opportunity to put a bit of themselves into that. I've seen that before as well with other people who've played it. And then I guess that is ultimately kind of, if your fantasy was, I want to have a Pokemon companion, or, you know, then you have two characters here, so you can make one of them yourself and then put yourself into that fantasy. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear, and very cool to hear that that you think it could be used in that way. I'd love to hear about how that goes if you do.
I mean, when I looked at it and I was looking through the flaws, I was looking at like the desires and like the virtues and stuff. I was like, I don't need to make these up because he's already got these in the book that match me to a T. Like, I have a short fuse. I have always had a short fuse. And then like the desire, like growing up, for the desire, I felt like I did have to take on the world. Like my brother and I, we were partners in crime, and like we felt like we were just fighting against everything all the time growing up. So like I didn't need to like immediately go and go like, well, what would I put here? And normally like in D&D, when I'm looking at like backstory or like character traits, I have to put a lot of thought into that. I have to think like, how do I want this character to be? And looking at that, it just resonated. I was like, this is who I am today. Like, this is who I was as a kid. This is perfect.
That's great. That's the, you know, that's an ideal response from a game designer's perspective. Yeah, so thank you very much. Yeah, it was there are lists of suggestions in there, like you're saying, which were very carefully put together to represent the type, because actually each type, although it has its own page and spread, and it's like, oh, this is the type that you pick, the only thing that is determined by that is the special ability that you get that gives you boost on certain rolls. For example, the computer wizard that lets you interact with technology and so on. That's the only thing which the book says, okay, if you're this type, you have this, and everything else is just a suggestion. But it tends to get the idea across of what it's what that type is about. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
I'm curious because I want to know personally, what is your relationship with all the old shows and trading card games and things revolving this kind of content material? Where do you come from with this?
It's been part of my childhood and just never went away, basically. I played Pokemon Blue on Game Boy Color when I was about 6 years old or something like that. My first video game. And played everyone since then, pretty much, you know. And then actually, in many ways, there are things about Digimon which I got into a little bit later, which I actually prefer, especially in terms of the storytelling, because the Animon Story as a game probably takes more inspiration, as I was saying before, from like the fiction and the narrative, so like the anime shows, rather than video games in terms of structure. And so when I was drawing inspiration for the game and designing what I wanted the game to feel like, it was more like, well, I'd like a session of Animon Story to feel like an episode of Digimon or an episode of Pokemon or something. Those sorts of problems coming up, those sorts of solutions. And that is because as I was growing up, and particularly even as I was getting a bit older, Digimon in particular, the anime series, I just really, really loved. And it I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but it has a slight...
So what season resonated most with you of the Digimon anime?
For the game, I was probably mostly thinking about the original. But the first so the original Digimon Adventure is like this. For those who maybe don't know, like these kids get transported into an unknown world that they've never seen before, and they meet creatures who become their partners. Whereas like in later series, like the Digimon Tamers, for example, is about kids in the human world who
That's the one with the cards, right?
yeah, so they have Digimon partners appear in the human world, and they are basically going around their neighborhood protecting the human world from Digimon who are appearing like aggressive monstrous Digimon appearing in their neighborhood, and these kids are the only ones who know anything about it. They're the only ones with Digimon partners of their own. They can go and sort them out. And there's variations on different storylines involving kids and their monster friends, basically. But I thought that so many of those worked as great setups for Digimon, for Animon Story games. And so it really was like loving those anime stories, probably that had the most influence on this game as opposed to video games or trading cards. But all of it was ingrained in my childhood from a very young age, and has definitely kept up, and has led to just a great fondness for these stories where you have kids and monsters, and just being able to look at a big list of all these cool monster designs and being like, oh, this one's my favorite, I want the trading cards of this one. Or I'm very very much have a nostalgic love for that, but probably not just nostalgic. It's still to this day.
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be writing something so carefully crafted.
Yeah.
And we've got good words back kind of in the affirmative of what you were saying too from Purple Phil in the Twitch chat. It just says, just watching it felt a lot like one of the shows, having the team with their Animon buddies. It captured the fantasy. So you landed it well. And I'm curious.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. It was a blast to play. And I'm curious for my own personal top shelf back here. Are you planning on? Because last time I heard you were grabbing pre-orders or grabbing orders and stuff from Twitch to kind of put funds forward. Are you planning on a physical copy of Animon Story?
I feel confident in saying that there will be a physical copy of Animon Story at some point in the future. Right now, I don't know how exactly I'm doing it or distributing it or anything like that, but like I will do it as in any way that I can. Basically, it's just going to take me a little bit of time to get things sorted out. But I absolutely want to have that available at some point in the future.
Perfect. I'm such a sucker for physical copies of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I printed out samples for myself, because I wanted them on my shelf. So yes, I very much understand that, and I would like other people to be able to have that as well. So
that's
I am working on it, and yeah, it'll be out there at some point.
I'm also curious how, and I guess this is an evolving question that I haven't started asking people with a lot of their indie games, because a lot of the indie games that I play, and the last number of them that have been on stream, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to balance, or at least a lot of the games that I've played don't pay a whole lot of attention to balance, because there's no need based on how the rules function to really warrant the purpose of, like, let's get into the real nitty-gritty of numbers. There are, however, in this system, or at least from what it feels like, a good number of different conditions and effects. There's kind of the rock, paper, scissors of all of the elements toppling one over the other, giving boosts to themselves, which is a really cool addition that kind of ties it further into the fantasy of it that we didn't get to see because we didn't play a whole lot of combat. But that's something, if you pick up the book, just out in the audience, there is a whole system for, this element of Animon trumps this element of Animon, and you get boosts to your rolls because of it. And that really that was, to me, the iconic kind of Pokemon thing or Digimon thing is paying attention to those type benefits. But there's a lot of those. There's a lot of these little mechanical touches as far as like flavor and power and signature power elements and Animon power elements and things. How much of that was put into consideration as far as like game balance and like play testing it to make sure that everything meshed well or was on the same field? Like, what are your opinions on that kind of thing?
Sure, that is a very good question, and I'm very glad that you asked, because I was thinking about this just earlier this evening, actually, myself, kind of in retrospect, and that's probably partly due to some of the conversations that have been happening about game balance and game mechanics in the sort of online community. So first of all, yeah. There's like the elemental matchups and things like that. And although I just spent ages talking about how the game is influenced mostly by the narrative elements, the anime and so on, I knew that I would have to have those iconic parts of those types of games as well, and wanted to have those in there. So there's different elements you can pick from. There's different attack effects that you can add. Because you kind of custom build your signature moves and stuff like that. So there's different options there. In terms of balance, I see it, I think, in especially for this sort of game, in a similar way. I know I've heard Spencer, who made Light and Nova and all those stuff, talking about this, and I think I lean in the way that that he does, in the case that basically if the players are having fun, like, I don't think the game being balanced is more important than that. Like if all of the abilities in the game are tuned up so that they are awesome when the players use them, so that they feel good when the players are using them, then I think that's the most important thing. Far more important than making sure that they are completely
numerically perfect.
Yeah, because as long as there's opportunities for every player to feel strong and feel awesome and fulfill the fantasy, which admittedly in Animon Story isn't always about strength. But if there is opportunities for every player to fulfill the fantasy that they are wanting to get from the game, then balance is secondary to that in a major way, in my opinion. Having said that, there were certain elements that I had to spend some time tweaking in this game, particularly because as there are 5 stages of Animon evolution, and I wanted each stage to feel more powerful than the last, significantly more powerful than the last. But also I didn't want to have people rolling like 15 dice by the end of the game or the end of a campaign, so I spent quite a lot of time tweaking those numbers and making sure that the balance felt similar from the earliest levels right to the last levels, in terms of how it feels. Obviously you have much more powerful characters by the end, but that was really the main part, was making sure that the game felt good to play all the way through, rather than matching up every attack effect or anything like that. And that wasn't too much trouble, because, as I said, most of the things on your character sheet players come up with themselves. Mm-hmm. There's certain things. The main thing, I think, is the signature attack effects, which you pick. For example, Robotanist had one which allows you to boost an ally instead of damaging an opponent. There's also ones that let you attack multiple enemies with the same attack, or stun enemies, or all those sorts of things. And I did try to make sure that none of them were like massively overpowered or completely useless. But ultimately, it was much more about, for me, it was like, does this effect play into an idea? Is someone going to look at this and go, oh, that's really cool, that gives me a great idea for an attack that my animal could use, or something like that. It was much more about making them appealing rather than making them mechanically balanced, because other than in a game where you have massive amounts of PvP, I don't think the players are going to mind too much if the player characters feel powerful. So as long as it's appealing and fun to play, that's the biggest thing for me.
That's kind of where I'm at too. I saw a whole bunch of conversations on balance and things, and listening to Chris McDowell talk about it on his podcast is one of my favorite conversations that I've ever watched, because he's just adamant. I mean, it feels like it's just adamantly against the concept of balance, because it's unnecessary, and it also ends up kind of a zero-sum game at the end of it. If every mechanically lined up in this way, you get spots in D&D where you're level 20, you have 170 hit points or something. In theory, it doesn't matter how good you are at spellcasting, somebody should be able to still come up behind you with a knife when you're not looking and stick you and kill you. So like, balance at the end of the day can never really be perfectly achieved. So I think trying to get there feels like you're missing the point of having fun at a table. So I like your perspective.
D&D, yeah, I think D&D is a good example, because I play it every now and then, and I have fun playing it. But I do think that the abilities in D&D have been balanced, like, and when I say that, I mean like they have been purposefully balanced against one another. And I think that sometimes leads me to being like, if I'm playing a new type of character or a new character class or something, sometimes I'll go, oh, well, this class ability sounded very thematic, but actually it doesn't feel that impactful in the game or whatever. Which, I mean, sometimes you're looking to play that sort of game, particularly in a game where you're not such heroic characters, maybe, or something like that. If maybe, I think there's space for that. But if you are supposed to be, if you're a paladin in D&D, I think that all of your powers should shout paladin and like make a big impact in like that unique way at the table. And I think by obsessing over balance, you are diluting that, basically. But I'm willing to be proved wrong if someone else thinks differently.
I mean, now I kind of want to play a paladin who can't use any of his powers unless he screams paladin at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there were I think that there were a handful of good things said, because for somebody who prefers RP to technicalities, right? I think there's a lot to be said in like, okay, well, I don't like, here's the reality, is that when it came to picking like fighting maneuvers and things like that, and I'm really bad at it at D&D to it. So like, this is not a knock on Dungeons and Dragons. This is across the board. I would think that balance is kind of like a subjective idea. Like for me, Matilda felt balanced, like where she lacked in like gusto, and I use that like with like a hearty go ahead.
Yeah,
Cece, her Animon, like very much picked up the slack there. And I know that's kind of like a theme, I've been told, I should say, is that's kind of like a theme with some of these things. I don't know that I've ever had that experience in D&D, but what I have had in D&D is RP moments that have made me feel compelled to be more of a player. So like to me it's like, okay, so what are we looking for as far as balance goes? But what I like about D6 systems and things like this are that it takes away like the numbers bit. Like, so I didn't roll. I mean, you have to roll to be successful, which I understand, but like, um, I don't have to in the thick of like a combat quote unquote situation. So I'll use like the wolves example, from our story tonight. I did not have to worry about or think about as everybody else was trying to decide what to do. As Fail was running across the bridge and Laura was hanging out with me, I did not have to preempt my actions about what would work best for the group because ultimately my character was good. And like as long as I was successful in my roles, like I was whatever was going to happen was going to be successful. And sometimes I think it's important, I think for me as a player to remember that balance means like failing is also success. Like there's always a story in a failure. Like there's always something that happens even when something isn't quote unquote mathematically successful or whatever, there's still a success to be had there. And I have to give props to Proper and his generational game for teaching me that because I have always wanted to like have a balanced character and have a successful quote unquote character, but forget that it doesn't necessarily, I guess is the point is that it's a pretty subjective idea. Like,
I think that's definitely a really good point. Actually, I saw Phonexian in the chat said something which is related probably, which is that we're talking about mathematical balance, but also particularly in indie games like this, where it's not so much about tactical combat, which does need to be balanced between people who want to pick different things. There is a kind of balance which is about how each character type feels compared to the others. If one of them is dominating the game over the others, then that's obviously something that needs to be addressed, and that's a different type of balance, which is a very good point. And I think that is definitely in line with what you were just saying.
I think that's something you run into as a problem in D&D too, though, is like a lot of D&D is less RP and really focused around combat. So you go into combat
for it
a lot of times, and like I've played characters where my character literally couldn't play. Like I was just sitting there like at the table, not playing because I could do maybe one or two things per combat, and then you've got somebody who's got like the most balanced, optimized fighter doing 18 things for an hour straight before it gets to the next person. And with Animon, I think it balances that perfectly, where everybody has, you got two signature attack uses. You can move, like once you've done this, it moves to the next person. Here's what they're going to do. Here's what they're going to do. And it works perfectly because it gives everybody a chance to feel included and a chance to feel like they get to play.
Yeah, I think that is a really good way to look at it. And it's more about the balance of how each character type feels, and is everyone feeling that they're contributing the same amount or having enough opportunities to contribute. So
yeah. And I'll pop in on Phonexian's response too, because I agree. Like with everything that's been said so far, it is interesting to see the I guess spectrum in which that is on, where certain games like D&D and stuff try to focus on mathematical balance, and that's usually where the conversation starts, because something with a vast array of abilities and different archetypes, and you get into the minutia of what each archetype can do, all of those are numbers and very much designed for that tactical combat kind of thing. And then we get here where the balance comes through the amount of powers each person has and the amount of actions you can take in combat if you want to consider it that, but it's really left up to the role play of each individual character and how you want to interact with the world, as opposed to worrying about all the little minutia. And then you get to the far end of things on the other side with things like in extremis, which, mind you, to that context, like in extremis has its own disclaimer in it saying that things are not designed to be particularly balanced, but like each archetype for in extremis, some of those have got just bonkers powers, and things are still balanced so that each turn you can do this many things and you kind of all fall under the same stat builds, which I guess is balance.
Yeah.
But the terms for the powers get really bizarre depending on how the table is interpreting them, and some of them can just get really out there. And with like overarms, the powers that you get for your anima are wild. And you pick those much in the same way in this one by just writing them out. You know, you get to decide what your anima's power is. There's no list for that.
Yeah.
And when I ran it for the top shelf, I let my players pick whatever they wanted. Like, I didn't stop them, because the idea of using these powers are going to be big and crazy, and some people picked bigger and crazier things than others.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, balance really comes down to the conversation at the table too, a lot of the times, and just how you choose to include everybody. Because I'm really glad that you, as a player, saw opportunities to use your character's special abilities, because I knew going into this that we were jumping into a fairy tale that was not filled with computers.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like that is an incredibly important part, and yeah, that is a different kind of balance. And I think your point about the conversation starting with mathematical balance, I mean, maybe that's not particularly healthy to always start with that because, for example, in this game, if there was a kid type whose abilities were all like either so specific or just never come up in this sort of story, you know, if there was an archetype of a character that just seemed like it was from something entirely different, like you would never see that type of character in a Pokemon episode or whatever, then their abilities presumably wouldn't come up as often or wouldn't feel as relevant to the story or the game as it was. So that is an important kind of balance, and I did put a lot of time into making sure each of the kid types felt good and felt equally good to one another.
Very,
so yeah, that's
yeah, no, and very genuinely, I think he did a great job. Like, I loved reading through it. I loved how easy it was to parse from Chrissy's perspective on it. I liked how much it kind of let you feel like you could dive into yourself and dive into a bit of that nostalgia, like Fail was mentioning. I think it captures a lot of good about the make-believe stories that we had as kids in a way that is connected and can still be played by adults. I think I look at things like this and I sometimes shy away from, or at least I started by shying away from some of the very much visually kid-friendly kind of stuff, and I've learned to almost completely rescind that and just toss it in the garbage, because that's not the case or the point at all ever, it seems. Because even with something like Quest, which is designed to be a beginner's system with a single D20 and stuff, kind of a learning, it's still a system that is put together that is what you make it at the end of the day at the table. And if you're playing it with a bunch of adults, like, it doesn't matter what it is, it will pull you back into that, and you sometimes can't even help it, and it's really fun to see.
I've seen it with this game too, is that a group that just feels more inclined towards like slightly darker stories. There's nothing in the game that prevents you from doing that. And I mean, also, like I said earlier, the fact that combat tends to be quite short and sharp, with a few flavor reskins, you can end up with something that is quite actually more adult, and if you want to do that. And you can also, I mean, the book completely puts it in the hands of each individual group to build their own setting, to decide what Animon are, how they link with kids. So you can really come up with anything from, you could have a thing where kids have plush toys that come alive, and those are the Animon. Or you could have like a setting where Animon are like manifestations of the darkest parts of people's souls or something like that. It's I think you are right very much in that each group will take what they're given with a game and make it their own. And I think ultimately when you create a game, you have to not only accept that, but embrace that. And I tried to do that as much as possible, because I want people to make it their own. And not adhere exactly to what was in my head when I wrote it.
Which is important. Like, I appreciate that perspective just from somebody who's read a gobload of systems at this point. In the interest of keeping into and on time, I'm really happy with everything that conversation has had so far. I think I've got a lot of just good info in general. If there's any final questions from everybody, I'm feeling pretty good about things.
I do have one last question
Yeah.
for you, actually.
For me?
Yes.
Okay.
So did the book reset when we left, or did Mama Bear remain injured and on fire?
So do you want my out of game meta answer for that?
That's fine.
Okay. My out of game meta answer for that is I didn't even know how you guys are going to get into the book when we started this session. The amount of planning that I went into this session with, because this is how a lot of my form for stretching my own improv skills works, is I knew it was going to be about fairy tales. I know there was Grandma and Grandpa living in a cottage and Grandma went missing. That is all I was aware of. So me asking Chrissy at the beginning, which being the bookworm, which story Grandma might be in, was me allowing myself to fill time and have her pick the next setting so that I could then build on it. I have no idea what happened once that book closed.
Fair enough. I mean, I do the same thing when I'm DMing. Like, one of my favorite things to do to my players during Henshin was wait for them to say something and then make that something real. I did it in Singularity with Factory. They would talk to Factory, and Factory, like, Martyr would say something absolutely absurd, like, oh man, we're going to open this door and there's going to be these things with no faces behind it. And instantly I'm like, okay, go ahead and open that door. Let's see what's behind it. And so I can relate to just being like, you know what? Whatever you say or whatever you choose, that's how we're going to go forward.
Well, and that's part of... Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just agreeing. Yeah, that's great.
Listen, I was going to hop in real quick, and I know Zach the creator can also back me on this, is that as soon as JK said that to me, I thought he was pulling like a Tales from the Loop thing where he was like setting one of the kids up to set a scene, because that's like one of the big things, and I'm going to make this short and concise. One of the big things in these types of games is that you allow the players to set their own scene and create their own narrative, which I think is super important, because I don't think players sometimes in other systems don't get a say in the narrative very often. Yeah. So I think it creates that autonomy in a really fucking cool way.
I particularly like on that level. I've enjoyed very much playing games based on the Apocalypse World engine, which is built from the ground up to, players have as much influence on the scenes and then the overall narrative as the GM does, ideally, in those games. But in something like this, which isn't quite to that level, I saw it as more of like equipping the players, equipping the kid characters and the Animon characters, and the way the bond builds between them with things that naturally create storylines or naturally create scenes, so that players do feel that they're having an influence, and that the things that their character brings to the table are noticed and bounce off the other characters and so on. which I think is probably my favorite way to play games. Yeah, I'm definitely not much for one sitting behind my GM screen knowing everything that's about to happen. I prefer to leave the work up to everyone else most of the time.
I used to be like that, and then the top shelf happened, and then literally from the premiere of this forward, having played 14 different systems on this show, and the speed at which I have to schedule people and work through everything every other week, it's impossible for me to know everything all at once, and that has been the best blessing for my skills as a DM, is not like literally having that ripped from me, so that I was forced to lean back on like my improv training and things so that I can play a little bit more with it. And I say improv training, but like I did improv and stuff a whole bunch in high school, but like not since. There's no professional there.
Well, you've had some fantastic games on this show, and I'm very honored to be joining them. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It has been an absolute blast, and I'm so happy to have had you on. I'm so happy with how the session went. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up at this point with that warm note, and we'll go in the same order. We'll start with Fail, and then Chrissy, and then we'll end with Zach. And then this time, once you guys are leaving, tell us who you are, where we can find you, anything upcoming for you, anything you'd like to plug, and then we'll get out of here.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm Fail Prime. I've been around TPK for quite a while. I've run Henshin, I've run Singularity. Right now we're working on Age of Sigmar Soulbound. That will happen again in 2 weeks. I will also be running Disaster Hamsters, another one-shot featuring hamsters trying to survive a laboratory. We really appreciate all the support, everybody coming and hanging out with us tonight. I really appreciate Zach jumping on and playing with us, coming in and doing an Animon Story with us. It was a lot of fun. You can find me in the Discord. You can find me at Fail Prime on Twitter. I'm all over the place. But again, thank you everybody for coming and hanging out with us tonight.
Okay, sorry, I was linking the Discord. Hey guys, I'm Chrissy. I played Matilda Stillwater, our cute little bookworm who carried around a Kindle so that she could have vast amounts of books at her hands, which is now lost in a wonderland. Yeah, where you can find me at Chrissy Crits on all social media. That's me. That's where you'll find me on literally every single place. That's my handle. You'll find me in the TPK Discord. You will find me coming up in any number of things. So I am in our bi-weekly D&D Tyranny of Dragons campaign, Queen's Gambit. I am also in a mini series ran by Tyrant at Dr. Tyrant. It is called The Wrath of Many. We just had that the other day. What else? Oh, TPKCon is coming up in 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that and keep the schedule out. Purple Phil, don't cry in the chat because I know Wrath of Many was emotional. It was rough. We have TPKCon coming up. I will be hosting a panel. I mentioned that I'm a therapeutic gaming specialist, and I will be having a handful of mental health professionals on a panel with me, and we're going to talk about how to safely explore personality and what that looks like inside your home games. So there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff. It's 3 days long. I think there's like 12 or 13 different things to watch, so I'm going to stop rambling. But just stick around. Come join our Discord. I'm super stoked that we played this. I appreciate that I, as a newbie to this entire universe, was able to hop in and play so easily. And I'm excited to take this to work with me. So thanks, Zach.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Zak Barouh. I'm the creator of Animon Story. You can find me on Twitter, which is where I'm most active, at ZakBeFree. And if you want to find more about Animon Story, the game, you can go to animonstory.com and you can find the game there, pick it up. It's available digital at the moment. And yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's been absolutely brilliant.
I appreciate it. It's always good to hear that the designer liked me running their game for them, and I didn't completely butcher it. No, but I am your host, Mads, who only now realizes that I put the chat box over my name this whole time, so I'm really glad that I only butchered my own. But you can find me at JKMadigan on Twitter, on the TPK Discord, as well as TikTok and a couple other things, Twitch, but I don't Twitch there, I only Twitch here. And then I currently am looking forward to 2 events coming up for TPKCon. Friday, we're talking about niches in role-playing with Meg Mysteria hosting all of that. And I'm going to be doing some compare and contrast based on like my improv preferences for horror games and heist games specifically are my kind of preferences there. Favorite things to run. And then the next day, I am hosting a panel, which I have come to call, I can't believe it's not game design, which, speaking of, it is Chris Bissett's birthday today, so happy birthday to Chris Bissett. He's the one who actually gave me the name for that, I believe, if I recall properly. But I'm getting 5 different game designers, including Chris, to sit down and play a game that has not been played before. It does not exist, and everybody is going to co-GM the game as it is played, and I am going to arbitrate the rules as people call them out, and they become concrete as the game progresses, so that by the end of the game, a game now exists. It's going to be a wild experience in improv with a whole lot of really, really talented designers, so I'm very excited to see what they design. But beyond that, we've got, following that, a couple more things. We're doing the finale for the company episodes, and then I also have a new game on itch called A Sailor's Grave that I'm currently itch funding. I would love to be able to hire some artists and some layout editors as well as a couple other things for that. I'm very, very excited for it because pirates. I have long been needing more tabletop pirate games, so I've been tinkering with that, and it's something that I'm real proud of where it is heading. It's got a lot of good content in it so far, and I've got bundles going on that too for Raven's Crest. If you have not picked that up yet, you can grab them both. Raven's Crest is like $1 with both of them at the same time. But thanks again, everybody. We'll see you in the next episode of The Top Shelf. Stick around, TPK, because we've got new things coming out literally every day. Our calendar is packed. And get ready for TPKCon, because it's going to be wild. Take care. We'll see y'all later.